measures we put in place. You know, I mean, travel bans, we closed down schools, closed down churches, closed down all sorts of social gatherings to ensure that we don't spread the virus. And now that we've actually crossed 10,000, I'm expecting to see more strict measures to ensure that we don't we don't spread it any further than we have.
Honestly, I didn't imagine, especially how it began and was going quite slow at the beginning, that we'll get to 10,000. But here we are. I think that, though, if you look at the details of what it is, and of course we can't get into all of it here, I think that we're still pretty much in a good place. Considering the number of tests that we've done across board, we're still leading in many countries in terms of the number of tests per capita. And then also, thankfully, our deaths are still quite low. You know, 48 is a lot of people to die, but when you compare it to other figures elsewhere, I think it's which country? I think it's South Africa. They've hit 1,000th death.
But
you know, when you look at it like that, you begin to realize that, and of course, other countries outside Africa are way, 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 way higher than that. You know, so in that sense, for me, I think I get a certain sense of relief. You know,
but then we've had recorded cases where people did not show any pre-existing health conditions, right? Which I personally find alarming. It's one thing to say, even the people who had pre-existing health conditions, I think we should be looking critically at those people to see, okay, how exactly is it that we are not able to save those lives? Because if they did not catch coronavirus, they may have been able to manage whatever health condition they have for decades to come. So how are we managing those conditions to ensure that if they do end up getting coronavirus, they don't die as a result, but that we are recording a lot more young people with no history of any health conditions catching the virus? And I find it alarming that a lot of us have forgotten that we're still living through a pandemic. I mean, yesterday we talked about what happened with the floods. You know, before the arrival of the floods, we were able to put in place certain things to ensure, certain measures to ensure that we don't spread the virus. Now we know that people are going to, you know, deal with the floods. They're going to think about their survival. They are going to touch each other to rescue themselves. They are going to move to family members' places for shelter. What exactly have we set in place to ensure that Ghanaians, some of the most vulnerable amongst us, will get through this season just fine without recording more cases of the coronavirus?
Well, anyway, I mean, I'm sure the Ghana Health Service will give us some better clarification on some of the details that now that we've crossed 10,000, you know. Anyway, but every day we start off the show with a quote. So let's take a look at our quote for today, and then we will continue the conversation.
And our quote of the day is from Albert Einstein. He's a scientist. He says, try not to become a man of success, rather become a man of value. And I think this is a very important quote. It has arrived at a crucial time because a lot of us chase success without necessarily looking at the value that we're providing. So if you find yourself being a doctor, don't change success. Focus on the value you're providing to your patients. If you are a teacher, don't focus on being the teacher of the year. Rather, focus on the kinds of people you are impacting, the students. How are you helping them become better versions of themselves? And if you're an entrepreneur, how are you serving your customers so that they will always come back to you? And speaking of entrepreneurship, we're still on our City Business Festival. The Business Festival is a month long of on-air and off-air activities where we focus on you growing your business. We started out with Reboot, which was focused on helping you get your business back on track. Yesterday, we talked about e-commerce, and the focus was on growing and engaging your customers. Now, some of the things we talked about included how do you exactly acquire customers on social media? There isn't a one-size-fits-all, you know, scheme. You focus on whatever it is your business needs, and then you find out a way to get those customers. We also talked about payments. A lot of entrepreneurs struggle to pay online, so the CEO of Gibbs joined us to walk us through all the available options that are out there. And then we talked about customer service. if you want to retain your customer, it starts with servicing them well. And we talked about so many other things that we'll be taking a look at shortly. But don't forget that next week we have the Agribusiness Forum. If you want to be part of that, you have to register by calling the number 0205 973 973 or 0558 973 973. And of course, the last week of June, we'll have our trade forum. Will export trade be the same again? To register for that, the numbers are right there. And of course, registration is absolutely free. And you can join us via Zoom and ask the really highly experienced people we have all the questions.
Yeah, it was fun watching you host yesterday.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we do have a video to give people a sense of what has been going on with the City Business Festival, in case you've missed it. Take a look.
Perspectives put forward by the panelists indicated that e-commerce could mean any other activity beyond the commercial activities of businesses or organizations via digital platforms. While it is not in doubt that most businesses count on social media and other digital platforms to reach their clients, the discussion explored how some mistakes could be avoided to make the best of returns. For the lead enabler at Enable Growth Consult, Stephen Nasebwedi, businesses can capitalize on what he refers to as retargeting their online adverts beyond a traditional social media ad to track customers.
You see, it's easy to run your own ads, but that's the cheap way. You just click on a button and you just get likes.
Okay.
But if you are going into the system to run the ads properly, you can track it. So, because Facebook knows too much about everybody, then you can be able to retarget it. So you can say, okay, people who look at, let's say, hair cream, may be interested in this other product. So you'll recommend the product to them. And the best example I gave was the Amazon example. Okay. So then, what I was saying was that at the convert stage, don't look to only sell, but look to capture relevant data that you can use to remarket, because otherwise you're selling yourself short. There are a lot of people who would see it, they are interested, but they won't buy it at the first stage. How then do you continue nurturing them? You understand what I mean? I mean, upside, what is here? The banks do it. You go the first time, you look at the product, they send you a brochure. A month down the line, they will tell you, the last time you looked at this brochure, are you ready to do it now? Do you know we've got a product that will suit that? Same way, whether you're a Kelewele seller or whatever, you can do some of these.
The digital lead at Pop Out, Maximus Ametogo, highlighted the threat posed by online fraud and how businesses ought to be wary of their impact in making clients disinterested in the e-commerce platform.
Government comes in. What is the policy driving e-commerce in Ghana? We need to have that so that anybody who is creating an online presence knows that the government has a policy guiding that. The buyer knows there's a protocol governing all the online transactions on the platforms. And the other thing is policing. How do we police the platform? Because a lot of people complain about fraud on the platform. They want to buy a product and somebody either defrauds them or they don't get a product they want. They order for a pink shoe and they have a black shoe delivered to them and a whole lot of things. How do we make sure we avoid fraud and crime and the rest?
The CEO of the Ghana Interbank Payment and Settlement Systems, GIPS, Archie Hesse, offering advice on tackling a major hurdle of payment, cited the role banks and fintechs can play in securing the platforms for e-commerce businesses.
So services are offered instantly, but when it comes to payments, most payments are not instant, i.e. the merchants do not receive their payments instant. We've seen of cases where products are then delivered and cash is given to couriers and all sort of funny things happen. The first thing is this: if you have a merchant website, we have so many different types. One of your in creating a merchant website is one of the easiest things that most people can do. But when it comes to attaching a payment engine to it, it is very complex, because you need to ensure that whatever data is captured by your website is...
So that is just a glimpse of what happened yesterday at the City Business Festival Week 2. We discussed e-commerce, how to engage your customers. Next week, we'll be looking at agribusiness, and there are lots of opportunities within that supply chain And then the final week, we'll be taking a look at trade. So to register to participate, just call us at 0205 973 973.
Yeah, and Jafar, yesterday we woke up with people running out of their homes, out on the streets. I saw carnage, just on the short stretch of road that I had to drive to work. I saw so much carnage. But it's a perennial problem. Yeah. And I think we need to fix this thing once and for all. And there has to be a way about this. Our colleague, Kojo Ejiman, has done a report. Let's take a look at that, and we'll come back and continue the conversation.
5-hour rain has caused residents at Otojo, a suburb of Dansoman in the Ablekuma West municipality. The situation is not as worse as you see in this area. The Assemblyman Richard is going to join me to take me on a tour to some of the areas where the devastation is serious. Assemblyman, welcome to the City Newsroom.
Oh, thank you.
You were telling me off record that this is not even worse. There are other places that the situation is more devastating.
Yeah, it's true.
So you're going to take me there?
Yeah.
But before we go, has this been the situation any time it rains in this area?
I think since from June 3rd that we have this, the same situation like this, but that one was even serious than this. Most of the area is so serious than this. Some of the houses is almost half of some of the walls within the area, some are down. I've gone through all the area, and then as I'm standing here, I'm even at the top. So
you mean this is a high land?
That is a high land that we see here. But when you go to the down part, it's serious there.
So let's go and find out how bad the situation is. So he just painted a picture to us, a picture of what is really the situation is. But we are going to go inside to the homes of many residents here. They are bearing the brunt of the 5-hour downpour.
When you watch it well, you can see that the man now he has moved out.
So this whole thing has forced him to move out of it.
Yes.
Okay. And that one too. I saw two ladies come up.
They are all right, but as you watch it now, the way you see it, the house is half that they have filled it inside
to the window level.
The window level. So they use the half of the house.
Anytime the clouds gather, they are afraid it will rain, and for that matter, their homes will be flooded. We are still going on a tour with the Assemblyman. As you can see, he has taken the lead.
Since years now, we don't have dead situation.
No one has died out of this. Okay, but then many have lost their properties.
Their properties are lost.
Okay, so
this is where the woman has blocked it.
The main. Okay, so let's go to. So you blame this whole thing on.
I blame the part of it, because if he hasn't blocked the gutters, but this time some of the water will flow into the big gutter, and then it will move away. As I speak to you, when you watch it here, there's no any flood here. Why? Because the woman has blocked the area. But as we watch in every houses, we have gutters. So we don't. I've been with her for several times, but still, he's telling us that he doesn't want gutter to come to his area. And then this is the situation that we find ourselves in right now.
Whilst on the tour, we met the MC for the area, George Cyril Bray, and his team. They are also assessing the impact of the 5-hour downpour on houses, on residents here. Let me get close to him and find out what his observations are. George, you've been the MC for this area for over 3 years now. Barely 2 years. This is an annual problem, isn't it?
We can't call it an annual problem in the sense that this is not an area that is earmarked for houses to be.
Yes, people are building.
Yes, people are encroaching. They are not building, they are encroaching. That is the problem. That is the crux of the problem, because every area that government has earmarked or has schemed as a place for either factories or houses or whatever, there is a plan. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in an area where if you check from even Lands Commission. It's a Ramsey site.
Yes.
The owner of this property feels you can't construct a gutter in front of her house, so she had virtually blocked it with sand. You know, there are several agencies we need to engage, because once it's a Ramsey site, then it means wildlife and all those guys come into the fray, right? So we need to engage all of them and see how best to go about it, because once you have encroached, one of the easiest ways to say we are going to pull down all the structures.
Wow, it just entered my trousers to my knee level. The water is so cold. Okay, so we're just going to go to talk to more residents. Madam, good morning. How are you? You live around here?
Yes.
So how bad is the situation? Let me have a minute of your time. How bad is the situation?
It's not good at all.
It's not good. Did they enter your room?
Yes, my room is here.
Okay, so has it spoiled anything?
Yes.
What
my TV, my machine, everything.
Everything is on. So what do you want to be done about it?
We want the government to come and help us so that we can solve this problem.
So Mary Chan was just also telling us how bad the situation is.
So there you have it, that's someone.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's crazy. If you see the young girl, she's speechless because all her things have been washed away. There's no such thing like anyone coming to your rescue. If you speak to people who have to deal with this every time it floods, something as simple as a photo album, you don't have. Everything gets washed away whenever it floods. Now, a few blocks away from us in Adabraka, our colleague Ferjabano walked in there. There were like hundreds of people on the streets as at 6 a.m. yesterday. We'll take a look at that report and continue the conversation.
The flood started coming 1 hour, 30 minutes before the rain started. We were all in the room. We started seeing the flood coming without the rain even starting here. So this is how it all started. It started 1 hour, 30 minutes.
Around what time?
Around 1 a.m. 1 a.m. the flood started coming. We didn't even see rain.
Where did it start coming from? Where did the flood start coming?
It started coming from the back. It started coming from the back, from the door. So the rain didn't even start. The water was on my waist. The rain didn't even start. The water is on my waist. So we were all standing there. We thought it was like normal. It would not rain. So we were all standing, started coming out. So we started seeing that it started raining heavy before we started seeing this flood here. Yeah, there's a woman and her kids at the other side. When you are going towards the market, you pass around this place, the market side, and there's a woman and a kid. She's a pregnant woman too. They are stuck there. So there were some guys who were trying to go and rescue her, but when they got there, the water was on their neck. So they all started coming back.
They said they've done the gutter. We don't know where the rain is coming from. It's very, very bad. Look at us.
I was told that the water came before the rain.
That is what I was. Yes, it came before because I closed. I used to sell Indomie here, so I closed around 11:30, and it was not raining. It was only drizzling when I entered my room. So around 3:30, I was caught. Our place is flooded. All our things is spoiled. My room and the kiosk, my Indomie, everything I'm selling has got spoiled. The rain has spoiled it. So it was not. It's not the rain that rains here that matters. Where it was coming from, I think it rained somewhere before it got to this place. So it has been flooded. Most of our things is spoiled. Look at this is what we have. Well, since 3:30, and we are still standing outside.
The water started getting in before even the rain started. Around 2:30 thereabout. That's where people started coming out. And around 4 o'clock, that's where the rain started, and that's how it came on. I came here around 4:30, and it was a disaster at that time.
So you can see the tragic scenes, unfortunate scenes there. You can see that it shouldn't happen. Not in 2020. It shouldn't happen. And not with one night of rain as well. 5 hours of rain, probably. Yeah. You know, it shouldn't happen. There's something critically wrong with the system that we have in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the layout, because Java, basic geography will tell you that the way Accra is laid out, we have rain that's coming in from the mountain sides, the hillsides, is running through certain channels, okay, and these channels need to be open all the time for the water to flow through to the sea. We know this, okay, and then you have places that are like bowls or crucibles in the ground that hold water. These are the ones we call Ramsar sites, okay. All these are there, and when they hold the water, it releases it slowly into the sea, okay. What are we doing? When you see the one in Otojo, for example, they are building in a Ramsar site. We can't blame God, we can't blame anybody else, we blame ourselves. We have to do something about this. Yeah.
And we're so happy to have Gabriel Engman, who's a sanitary engineer with the Gamma Sanitation and Water Project, with us. He's joining us via Zoom to help us understand exactly what's going on and how we can find solutions to this problem. Good morning, Gabriel.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning to your cherished listeners. I'm doing okay. I'm doing good.
So you've solved some of these problems. Walk us through your experience and how we can apply some of the solutions to solve these issues so we don't have to have this conversation this year.
Okay. Under the Gamma Sanitation and Water Projects, we have worked on a number of drainage interventions in Greater Accra. Previously, when we started, we had to identify a few, just about 4 priority drainage areas that had flooding challenges, which includes Malam, Bawe, in Kaneshi First Light, and Agbogba. There was a particular situation at Agbogba that we dealt with, and we basically had to do some expansion of the drains at those vantage locations. These locations basically couldn't handle flood that was coming from upstream, moving downstream. And normally when it rains, definitely, it's nature, water would, flow in their pathway heading towards the sea. So by the time the floods or the water or the rains gather together and they are getting close to the sea, the volumes would have been very, very huge. So if the structures or the measures downstream are unable to handle these volumes of water flowing towards the sea, then we will have a big challenge with managing the flow, the surface runoffs. So at these key areas, we noticed that, the drains there had been, let me say, old. They were not able to handle the capacity of runoffs and the waters moving towards the sea. And then we did some form of improvement on those particular sections to allow the water to move. In those times before we did the intervention, if you have a drain that is small, what happens is that the water would overflow its banks, onto the road, into people's houses and the like, destroying property and damaging people's things. So at those places, we have managed to at least expand and allow water to flow. But that is not the full solution to all the problems, because there are other areas also experiencing floods in these times, and it's due to a number of reasons. But that experience has shown that if we want to look at only the structural measures, then there's quite a lot we need to do downstream. We have to have a comprehensive downstream expansion program
so
that
now,
will correct these things.
So now we have a pandemic on our hands, and as you can see, when people are fighting for their survival, they don't think about social distancing, wearing a face mask, washing their hands with running water and soap. What kind of measures can we put in place now to stop some of these things from happening?
With regards to the flooding, right?
Yes.
Yes. So right now, it's
a bit
very,
late.
very difficult to just, it's a bit late. There are a number of things that we have to do. Some could be short term, some could be medium or long term. And let me start from the short term. The short term measures basically would be, we have to do a lot of education on, and also enforcement on, getting people not to interfere in the water paths. We have to let them understand that when you throw rubbish into drains, you would have issues downstream. If you block waterways, you would have issues. So even if you decide to stay in an area where the water is flowing, you must know that you don't even need government to come and move you away from there. The water itself would move you. So whether we like it or not, people have to stay away from waterways. There's a lot of studies that have been done and a lot of knowledge on the waterways in Accra. It's clear, everyone knows it. And therefore, those areas, we must stay away from them. I think one of the things is that the responsibility lies a lot to with the assembly and how they link up with those residents or those people within their jurisdiction in those key areas, and get them not to interfere, not to build in these water paths indiscriminately, not to dump, not to block any path or put any obstacle or impediment in the waterways. That's one of the short-term measures we could undertake as of now. Even though expensive, because when you want to, decide to demolish illegal structures and do a lot of education and do a lot of enforcement to ensure that this is done, it takes money. You need money to do that. So if the assemblies are not funded, or they do not have enough, IGF to undertake these actions, then we would always be having these issues. In the medium term, one could look at what plans that are in place that can be reviewed and implemented. A lot of agencies are involved in this. We have, I think, NADMO, Ministry of Works and Housing, Ministry of Sanitation, Water Resources, Ministry of Local Government. A lot of agencies, Hydrological Service Department are also part. And there are quite a number of projects. There needs to be some integrated, efforts in coordinating these, because, one area affects the other.
Okay.
As I indicated.
Thank you very much for being with us, Gabriel Engman. He is a sanitary engineer with the Gamma Sanitation and Water Project, and we hope that policymakers are listening, and you as well, if you live in these areas, don't dump trash there, because you'll be contributing to the floods. This is still Breakfast Daily on City TV. Thank you so much for staying with us. My name is Jifa Ike Amatam.
And I'm David Kwekusechi.
Don't go anywhere. News reviews next. We will be right back.
Thank you, sir. Hello, my name is Samuel Ofori, a film actor and a film director. Because of the nature of my job, the taste for quality things is endless. Quality phones, quality laptops, quality TV sets. Let me show you my secret. Here is Franco Trading Enterprise. My secret for quality laptops, quality phones, quality TV sets, accessories, come on, external hard drive, pen drive, name it. For bulk purchase and retails, come to Franco Trading Enterprise. They'll reduce the price for you. Franco Trading Enterprise. Home quality phones.
To all the moms and dads out there, we are bringing school to the radio. Parents, the Ministry of Education, the Ghana Education Service, GBC and USAID are starting an exciting new radio education program to help your child to continue learning to read at home. It is the Ghana Learning Radio, the reading program. Beginning 15th June 2020, some of your favorite primary school teachers will take you and your child through exciting, interactive and easy to follow radio lessons that will contain stories, interactive games, riddles and humorous characters. We are planning 2 sessions of reading for B1 to B3 for your child from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, with repeats on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Think of it as school on the radio during this outbreak of COVID-19. Stay safe and get ready for a whole new way of learning. Tune into the fun June 15, 10:30 a.m. on all GBC radio channels nationwide. We will be waiting for you. Learn to read, read to learn. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Education, GES, GBC and USAID.
Welcome back. It's time for us to do a news review, and the conversation will be interactive. Just remember that the hashtag is Breakfast Daily, and the WhatsApp line is 0550585832. I want to take you through the headlines of the papers. We'll do some online stories. I'll introduce my guest to you, then we'll have a conversation. All right, so on the front page of the Daily Graphic, floods wreak havoc again, 5 lives lost. CI-126 operational today, receives majority approval in Parliament. Flogging father sentenced to 24 months in jail. Voters registration begins June 30. On the front page of the Ghanaian Times, Accra underwater again. After 4-hour downpour, property destroyed, 1 dead at Adabraka. Court remands man of God over alleged threat to kill EC boss. Jamestown to get 1.8 million Ghana cedi ultra-modern edifice. Tensions mount at Agomeda over chieftaincy dispute. 170,000 MSMEs apply for COVID-19 business support scheme. This is coming from the NBSSI. On the front page of the Daily Statesman, new voters register coming as Parliament passes law for fresh registration to begin. Government partners Zoomlion to disinfect military installations. A tale of twists and turns. Mahama makes shocking U-turn on trainees' allowance. On the front page of the Finder newspaper, what is EC's crime? Flawed voters register will produce flawed elections. Mali, Ghana, Benin, Mali, Guinea, Benin, Cameroon, Burundi held elections amidst COVID-19. That story is on page 2 of the paper. The Chronicle, on the front page of the Chronicle, gospel minister in national security dungeon for threatening EC boss. Minority failed to shoot down CI-126. Apollonia youth want chief destooled. Floods devastate Accra again. And NBSSI prepares for disbursement as over 110,000 MSMEs apply for stimulus package. And we go to some online stories. And on citynewsroom.com, we have Ghana's COVID-19 cases cross 10,000. Government to open borders for final year foreign students. This story is coming from the Minister of Information, Upon Nkrumah. Government knows beneficiaries of my 51 million Ghana cedi judgment debt, says Woyome. Archbishop Duncan Williams breaks silence on son's social media outburst. Voters registration exercise to begin on June 30th. And on citybusinessnews.com, BOG declares no dividend for 2019 despite 1.8 billion Ghana cedi profit. Reinstated fund managers, must have money to pay us, customers tell SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. Validation still ongoing to pay fund management customers. This is from the Securities and Exchange Commission. City Business Festival. Digital analyst cautions businesses against impact of e-commerce fraud. And on my Joy Online, 5 die at Okaikwe North in Tuesday's downpour. And on BBC.com, Burundi President Pierre Nkurunziza dies of cardiac arrest at 55. So for more news, kindly visit citynewsroom.com. And for more business news, kindly visit citybusinessnews.com. All right, so the show is interactive, like I said earlier on. Remember, the hashtag is Breakfast Daily. The WhatsApp line is 0550585832 to let us hear what it is that you're thinking. Now, I've been joined in studio by Fatih Abubakar, who is the Deputy Director of Communications at the Office of the President. Good morning, Fatih.
Good morning, David.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How
It's
about
good to have you here. I'm very well, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, I'm still expecting my other guest, Gabriela Tete. She should be here anytime soon. Right, so what is your take on our crossing over the 10,000 mark? I mean, I remember on March 12th when the first 2 cases were announced. I didn't picture 10,000, honestly, but we're here. What do you make of it so far and the general dealing with the pandemic?
Okay, first of all, David, I would like to say good morning to your cherished viewers and to all Ghanaians. I believe if anyone would have thought that 2020 would turn out this way, there's no way.
Yeah.
But we plan and God also plans. And since we recorded the first 2 cases of COVID-19 on 12 March, I believe a lot has been done. I don't necessarily look at the 10,000 as a figure. I look at the fact that we have some 3,755 individuals recovering, and unfortunately 48 deaths. But as compared to other jurisdictions, which also comes as quite a very low death rate for our country. And every single life counts and matters. But I believe in terms of numbers, we are encouraged that most of these infected people who are still within the 6,000 and so on active cases would recover and join us. I was also happy about the fact that during the last announcement, we realized that we had not recorded any new deaths, and that is also encouraging. You would realize that when we recorded our first 2 cases, most of the things that we would have required to combat this COVID-19 were not available in the country, because we are a country noted of importing more rather than producing or manufacturing locally. And since the time, since the 2016 campaign, President Akufo-Addo was advocating for Ghana Beyond Aid, and advocating for the fact that we should take our fate into our own hands, and especially his effort to drive an industrialization agenda. So it is not surprising that even at this time, that the borders of most countries around the world have been locked, and we are on our own virtually. We haven't run out of most of the essential items that we will need, like sanitizers, like face masks, gloves, so on and so forth, because our industrial players have stepped up to the plate, and they are doing as much as they can to ensure that whatever we would require in times like this are not in short supply. Also because our health workers have also stepped up, and most importantly because government has committed so much resources to this fight, to the extent that government with some banks which are partnering with government are providing as much as $1 billion under the COVID-19 CAP business support program. So it is not something that we anticipated or desire to happen to our country, but as we call it, a novel virus, and it is not peculiar to only our circumstances, but I would say so far, so good. And if we will get it and we are not dying, I believe if we are not dying and majority of the people are recovering from it, then it is encouraging that no matter what we will be faced with, we'll find a way to deal with it. It also means that all the safety protocols and restrictions and what have you that the government has introduced through the President's broadcast, through the Ministry of Health or Ghana Health Service, or through the Ministry of Information periodic briefings with other ministries and agencies, when adhered to, will go a long way to help us as a country to reduce our numbers. So these are not easy times, they are not normal times, but I believe as a country we've done so much, and we will continue to put in the best efforts to ensure that we are able to deal with this situation once and for all and have it under control. And we are also hoping that with the kind of efforts and studies being made by scientists from this country, putting their knowledge to bear in times like this, researchers of this country, we may not even wait on some other countries or international organizations to come up with a vaccine, but we'll find ways and means locally to, in terms of medicine and all that, find a way to resolve this issue.
Okay, all right, thank you. We have a message already coming through from one of our viewers. She's called Alex. Alex says, good morning. We're giving less attention to COVID-19 and paying more attention to the EC. Meanwhile, with this COVID-19, the registration can't go on. Please tell NIA to visit Agohopo at Agotime Ziope district to register the people. The NIA didn't show up there at all. Okay, so I want us to tie in this conversation and segue to EC. So the message here is quite on time, because he's saying that, look, we're paying more attention to EC. Fair enough. It's an election year, right? So we need to figure things out, and soon enough. But why are we not enforcing the protocols more rigorously across board if we're going to, as it seems that we are, we've already relaxed some of the restrictions. We're already out in the open. There are no more lockdown situations and so on. Should we not step up, ramp up the protocols and enforce them more?
David, you would remember that when we were on lockdown, how many people were wearing nose masks? There's been some variations, but that is not to say all restrictions have been removed.
Okay.
If they have, at least we would have had basic school students and other students who are not final years going to school. But this is the situation where they have to stay home. Look at the kind of guidelines given to religious organizations and public buildings and so on and so forth. It does not suggest in any way that we are relaxed or we are resting on our laurels. That's okay, we are done with the fight and we are giving up already. Even as I entered this building, the security guard insisted on one or two
certain
things.
protocols, yeah.
Certain protocols before I can enter this building.
So we are doing what we have to do.
And if you are going to the banks, if you are going to the hospital, every single public building, it should tell you that we are not resting at all, and we are not saying it's free for all. We are done. Everybody should move around. But the issue has to do with uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Around the world, people don't know when this situation with COVID-19 is coming to an end.
Yeah.
That is the situation. If COVID-19 will turn out as malaria or HIV or any other disease, it should tell you that it's not a matter of locking yourself in your room for a year and coming out and the situation being resolved or the virus disappearing.
Yeah, but this is a little different in the sense that if you look at HIV, for example, if you haven't had sex, you're pretty much okay. Do you get what I'm saying? If you haven't had sex, you're not really worried about. Of course, there were those situations where a barber may use it. You get it infected, cross infection from somebody else who has it, and it came onto a blade and whatever. But by and large, if you haven't had sex with HIV, that's the situation. In this case, it's in the atmosphere near an infected person.
And I'm saying that I'm not talking about it.
And you can't even see the infected
I'm not even talking about it in terms of infection rate or death rate. Then we would have mentioned Ebola as being deadlier. I'm talking about the fact that COVID-19 may not go today or tomorrow. And as we observe protocols, we still have to find a way to live with it in the meantime, whilst we are looking for vaccines around the world to resolve the situation. And so much has been done. David, we sat here and we had conversations about ventilators and all that. How many people are on ventilators among the 10,000?
Well,
it should tell you that the early detection, the testing, the announcements.
It's worked there.
It's worked because people are taking care of themselves. And majority of Ghanaians are observing the protocols.
Let's jump into the EC stories because our listener says that we are concentrating on EC. So let's get into that and talk about EC right now. Now, the first story here on citynewsroom.com: voter registration exercise to begin on June 30th, right? So that's on citynewsroom.com.
Mm-hmm.
The Electoral Commission has set Tuesday, 30th June 2020 to begin the compilation of the new voters register for 2020 general elections. A letter to the political parties signed by the deputy chairperson of the commission, Dr. Bosman Asare, and cited by City News, said the exercise will be held at all registration centers and district offices of the EC nationwide. This letter comes to inform you, and I quote, that the 2020 voters registration exercise has been scheduled to commence on Tuesday, the 30th of June 2020. The registration will be held at all registration centers and district offices of the Electoral Commission throughout the country, the EC added in the letter. And then Parliament gives green light to compile the new register. Let's talk about the new register here. The next story says new register. Parliament gives EC green light to use Ghana card and passport for identification. Parliament has voted to allow the EC to use the Ghana card and passports as the only forms of identification for persons registering to vote. The legislators voted in a 102 to 96 decision in favor of the amendment of the constitutional instrument empowering the EC to organize elections in the country. The vote occurred after the Speaker of Parliament, Professor Michael Quay, granted a request from the minority leader following a debate on the amendment. The EC has presented the Public Election Regulation 2020 CI 126 to Parliament to amend CI 91 in order to change the current identification requirements. This means the old voter's ID will not be valid for registering to vote. The Subsidiary Legislation Committee, which considered the amendment, could not arrive at a consensus as to whether the exclusion of a driver's license and the existing voter's ID from the amendment was constitutional. But according to its report, it recommended by majority decision the passing of the amendment. All right, so let's talk about this issue here. So the EC is going to go ahead and do this. There's a couple of questions that I have. First of all, the whole issue of protocols as we've discussed them and so on. How practical really is it going to be to implement safety protocols, preventative protocols, and so on? But then the issue of the IDs, okay? Now it says here that the Subsidiary Legislation Committee couldn't come to a certain conclusion, okay, a certain consensus rather, as to whether it should be excluded or not. So it was voted on in Parliament, and Parliament swung it in the direction of using Ghana card and passport. My challenge with this, and I want you to respond to that as part of your response, is how many people realistically are going to hold a Ghana card or a passport to get registered? I went to get my Ghana card done in June of last year. I don't have my card as we speak.
Okay, David, first of all, for the records, I would like to state that I do not speak for the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission is a creation of the Constitution, and they will get the opportunity to respond to some of the issues that have been raised personally when read out to. But for a government spokesperson and someone who is also a member of the NPP's communications team, we have had a position that predates COVID-19, a position that predates the 2016 general election. We strongly believe that the voters register, which was made with the CI 72 and subsequently used for the CI 91 that we had before this new CI has been passed, has a lot of problems. And we have demonstrated against it. People have had cause, the Abu Ramadan and Evans Nimako and go have had cause to even go to courts. And the court also gave a judgment and gave a direction to the EC to go and remove the names of those who use the National Health Insurance ID to register from the electoral register. As it stands now, some individuals have even come out, someone like Mr. Kesley Hayford, have come out to say that I use my NHIS card to register. My name has not been removed from the voters register. The plaintiffs in that case have come out to say that when we sat with the EC at the time, that conversation, which was led by Madam George Nogokwa Mankwa and Mr. Amadisule, they informed us that they were not going to be able to remove those names from the roll. But when they came to court, they said they can, and subsequently submitted some 56,000 names as being names that they've taken out based on individuals who registered with the NHIS card. It turned out that the forms that were used at the registration centers did not have a place to state whether or not you are using NHIS card to register or not. So simply put, not just speculation, but based on individual testimonies and the information available suggests that the EC was not able to take out those individuals who use the NHIS card to register. Now, as to whether or not they are not accepting the card may not be related, may not be dependent on only this issue that we in the NPP believe to be the case. And subsequently, the court has also said that they should remove the names. They themselves have mentioned a lot of challenges that they were faced with.
Hold on. Are you saying that? Okay, let me try and understand what you're saying. You're saying that, so they came with a list of names that they said they had removed, 56,000 thereabouts. But later on, it was realized that there wasn't a system in place to find out who had used the NHIS card.
Yes.
Which means what exactly?
Which means the names were not removed. And I'm not saying just that. So, some individuals have come out, and I've cited Mr. Kesley Hayford on TV to say that I used NHIS card to acquire my voter's
and his name
ID.
is still on the register.
My name is still on the register. And looking at the millions of people who were on the register at the time, it is not true that only 56,000 people use NHIS card to go and register. I had cause to speak to one of the plaintiffs.
Fraudulent?
That's why I'm saying their reason for whether or not we should use the voter's ID, and now Parliament has given them a go-ahead not to use it. It's another issue. I don't have information as to why they are taking the card out. There may be other related issues. But I am saying from the position of the NPP, we have been vindicated because we believe strongly the names were never taken off the register. And if there was a court instruction to that effect, I believe they were supposed to do the right thing, and we will not be sitting here. They have cited problems related to BVDs. They have cited problems related to their systems being obsolete and so on and so forth. But I am saying that those technical issues are something that their PROs can deal with. But we strongly believe that the voters register, as we had it, is problematic. It has a lot of names in it who are not supposed to be there. They mentioned that they registered people abroad on ROPO, over 200,000 people. When the then EC chair was asked to bring the list of people they registered abroad, he could barely produce over 200.
Okay.
And because of that issue, we know the ghost names are too many and the register is problematic.
All right.
Apart from...
Hold on, we have to take a short break. We'll come back and continue the conversation. So let's take a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Unlock banking with biometrics. Now you can access the ABSA mobile banking app using your fingerprint or facial recognition. Download today. That's Africanacity. That's ABSA.
Extra data, extra minutes, and extra unlimited calls. Not just that, even our extra data doesn't expire. See the film? Simply dial *111# to bundle now.
Airtel Tigo. Life is simple.
welcome back from that break. We were discussing the issues of the EC. Now, you've sent a lot of messages. I will get to them, right? So keep the messages coming in. Hashtag Breakfast Daily. WhatsApp line is 0550-585832. Kindly prefix that with +233 if you happen to be outside the shores of Ghana. Now, Fatih Abubakar, who was Deputy Director of Communications at the Office of the President, was making her remarks when we went on break. Fatih, yes.
Yeah, so my point is that testimonies from individuals, evidence on the Form 1A suggests that the voters register is bloated, simply put. And we have complained about it over and over and over again. It's the same Electoral Commission. It hasn't changed. We have been consistent. If the Electoral Commission believes it is time it should do a new register, it only suits the fact that we have advocated for it a long time, even before the Electoral Commission took this decision. The second issue has to do with the fact that, as it stands now, the NDC's conversation and argument as to why they do not support a new voters register is confusing. Their position is even confusing to their members.
Why?
Because for once, they started with the fact that we did not have time to compile a new register. And then evidence was shown to suggest that in 2012, the compilation was done in April at the time, which was the same time that the Electoral Commission had set for the registration this time around.
Okay.
Then they quickly jumped to the argument about cost. Then the Electoral Commission stated that the cost of changing the system and all the other things they were supposed to do, as compared to acquiring a new register, did not suggest that they were going to incur additional costs. In fact, the Electoral Commission stated that they were going to save over 170 million for the country's coffers. Then they moved to COVID-19. And that is the most hypocritical argument that I have heard from the NDC. The reason being that whether or not we have a new voters register, the NDC would have been fine with Ghanaian youth who would have turned 18 years this year to go and queue for a limited voters registration exercise. These individuals also belong to families. They are our family members. If you look at the risk of registering because of COVID-19, then also look at the risk of individuals going for limited registration exercise during COVID-19. And looking at the bigger picture, they don't mind Ghanaians going to queue in December to vote for them. They don't mind their foot soldiers, the NDC foot soldiers, going to queue on 7th December to vote for them. That they mind that they are going to register because they don't support that position. We don't know the end to this COVID-19 pandemic. So at the end of the day, if you are opposing the register, you have a position already. Stick to your position. Don't jump quickly on COVID-19 just to look for sympathy card. Besides, Ghana is not the only country going into elections this year. Burundi is, Tanzania is, Mali has, South Korea has. Other countries on the African continent are also going into an election. So if, according to the EC, in order to deliver on their mandates, for Ghanaians to have a free, fair and transparent election, they would require a cleaner register to execute that mandate. We are there, they are referees. Our responsibility, as stated by Honorable Johnson Asiedu Nketia, is to make sure the votes happen at the polling station, because that is where we go and get our votes. The results now are only collated there and sent somewhere. You won't get your votes in the courtroom or here in Accra. Also, the only person who has been inconsistent in this new register debates and everything related to the credibility of the Electoral Commission and whether or not they are competent is the former President John Dramani Mahama. Because he granted an interview with Straight Talk Africa, he has spoken at a rally at Funsi in Wa East constituency, and he stated that Ghanaians should not go out there and say that the EC is incompetent, they don't know their work. The Electoral Commission of Ghana is one of the best in the whole world, not Africa. He repeated, in the whole wide world. So at the end of the day, how can the standard bearer of the NDC the flag bearer of the NDC and the former president of the Republic advocate for an electoral commission in one instance, say that they are the best, one of the best in the whole world, and they will turn around to say that the electoral commission is incompetent, they don't trust the electoral commission.
Okay.
So the arguments are neither here nor there.
All right, thank you.
We are consistent, and we have stuck all this while to one single position, that the electoral register is bloated and it needs to be fixed.
All right, thank you.
And we are happy that there is going to be a new register.
Okay, so I've been joined by my other guest, Gabriela Tete, who is the NDC communication team member. Good morning, Gabriela.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Fatih says, you guys are doing yo-yo things, bouncing back and forth, basically unstable and not certain and decisive as to what it is that you actually want. In one hand, the EC shouldn't be touched or criticized. On the other hand, when it suits you conveniently, the EC is incompetent. What do you have to say for yourself?
To use her own words, we are being hypocritical. And sorry, good morning to our viewers. Fatih, good morning once again.
Good morning.
Good morning to you too. Hi. We'll start with the flag bearer's accusations. She says in 2016, the then candidate who had an interview with the BBC and said that the EC was credible and should be allowed to do its work. But in 2020, the candidate for the NDC, now candidate president, former President Mahama, is now saying something else, and that makes it hypocritical. There's an adage that goes, there's only a fool who doesn't change his mind.
Okay.
And every time a person takes a decision, from 2016 to 2020, a lot has happened. We have a new commissioner who is not very engaging with the other political parties, knowing very well that going into an election, you have to work hand in hand with your stakeholders, who are the political parties and CSOs. From the beginning of the conversation about sweeping reforms to the Electoral Commission, we've had 40 civil society organizations and over 17 political parties all come out and express the same concerns about the timing, because we are of the view that looking at the kind of complex reforms the EC wants to put in place, rolling these things out within a one-year period may complicate matters in 2020, because already we are going into 2020 elections with different dynamics. We all know that for the first time, we have a former president and a current president coming to contest. We all know that once upon a time when people were coming into office and were making all sorts of grandiose promises, far-reaching, rainbow-like, flowery promises, one district this, one this, that, one that. Now is the real litmus test before 2020 as to who has been able to deliver on their mandate to the people of Ghana. That in itself has its own challenges and excitement. We were of the view that should the EC, who should be a neutral umpire in this matter, start rolling out all kinds of reforms, having so many of them all at once, at one go, should any challenge come up with what they are doing, may disrupt what we are doing. Granted that as the umpire, they have every right to have a register, they have every right to put in new reforms to make sure that you have new softwares, new applications for their work, granted. But we were of the concern that the timing wasn't appropriate because of the conditions under which we were coming to play out. On the costing, this country has already invested over $200 million in the EC. Just 2015 alone, we pumped no less than $60 million into the EC. You want to do away with all that and start with a whole new complex system. We said,
which has
what
been
happens
suggested
to this?
to be cheaper.
They say it's cheaper, but so when you say something is cheaper, at what cost? Because you're already losing $200 million. So we are starting already with a loss of $200 million.
Okay.
Before you come and add what you think is your gains. Now, we all know in this country that we are all very good at estimating cost of projects. But when it comes to the actual implementation, we do have overruns. You get it in your streets, you get it in your electricity, you get it in your water. It happens. That's reality. Our view was that if you want to put in any new reforms, look at what you have. Some technology you say is not appropriate because it's obsolete and all these things. Civil society players like Imani and Co. did their assessment and came out and said what you are saying is not entirely true because there are still other ways of going about it. You still maintain that your position is what remains and that is what you want to do. We give it to you. You've won the day. The CI has gone to Parliament. It's been passed. Now we've limited the cards to
Ghana card,
the Ghana card, the passports, and then the guarantees.
Yes.
Currently, the NIA has not completed its registrations. There are people who have
No, I mean,
registered,
they've done the majority, so
but people do not have the cards.
that's a serious problem.
Per their own data, they say that they've registered about 90 million people above the age of 15. They estimate that between 16 to 17 million of these people should be above 18. They've issued out roughly about 7-point-something million cards.
Yeah.
Starting today, they are releasing under 3.5 or so million cards, which will bring the total number of cards in circulation to about 11 million. That process is yet. I know people. You just even mentioned that you registered and not got your card. I hope that your card is one of these 3.5.
I don't have my card.
If you don't have a passport, to go look for your guarantors. I was at a station yesterday and the presenter was asking after the show, so he doesn't have a Ghana card and his passport has expired. What will he do? I said, well, between now and June ending, you have a choice to go and renew your passport and hope that the renewed passport comes to you before then, or you're also going to look for yourself 2 guarantors. Now, the issue of these 2 guarantors, it goes to say that they themselves must prove their own eligibility on the register before they can guarantee for you. If any queries are raised about any of them, the registration, what happened to you that they guaranteed for? So I don't want anybody to go and attempt that thing, unless you want to go on the adventure that it presents. In the EC's response to the Supreme Court, they mentioned that one of the arguments they make for not using the old voter ID is that when it comes to the guarantors, the proof of citizenship was then placed in the guarantors and not the voter. That same element still exists with this current CI because the proof of citizenship is still in the hands of your guarantors. So you have not solved that problem. Then they keep mentioning that there are so many underage names. Let's assume somebody registered at the age of 12 in 2016. 2020, by now that person should be how old? 16.
Yeah.
Almost time to register in the next district assembly elections. If in 2012 that person came, we have people who came on at the age of 12. 2020, that's plus 8 years. That means those people are now 20 years old. They now qualify to vote. They said there are people who have
Why
died.
would somebody register at the age of 12? I mean,
some people are adventurous. Some people, they think that they've developed early, so they want to show that they are big girls and big boys. But when they were registering, where were the officers from the EC who were registering them? That's even another matter. Then,
should you have proof that there are people on that list that are underage?
That is what they were saying. I'm not even interested in whether they are underage or they are not underage. They are still Ghanaians. And then they said that there are people who have died on that list. Starting a new register, people are still going to die. It is a fact of life. The answer to that problem is not a new register. It is for us to solve the problems with our birth and death registry. And at a time like this, when this government is itself preaching digitization, is not able to have a birth and death registry app that is able to communicate with the NIA, able to communicate with the passport office, able to communicate with the EC, so that at every time in a year, when we have a number of people who have died in the year, don't bring it to voter exhibition and expect people who have lost their relatives to come and strike out their names.
Yeah.
That thing is so 1980s.
Or maybe earlier.
I mean, you know, we are progressing, and we should be more progressive about some of these things. By this time, the birth and death registry should be relaying that information to the EC so that it is taken out, stored somewhere. If anybody comes and says that, oh, I'm not dead, it's not a person, you're able to prove that name back.
Okay, so fair enough, and I'll let you finish your comments. But as part of your conversation here, I want you to touch on the fact that you guys seem to be a little too hard on the EC, considering also you have a prophet, a certain prophet, who says he will kill the EC chairperson. It's a very.
You want me to add that issue? Let me go for.
Yes, I want you to comment on that.
Let me go from the EC into COVID with EC, and then I'll go to that one. Now, here we are having to go for a registration. She was mentioning that we were saying that we want a limited registration, and then what happens? But we want to go to a general election and have the people of Ghana come out to vote massively in a general election. Yes. 18 million Ghanaians out at the time when we were dealing with the pandemic. This morning, the numbers have increased to 10,221.
You've crossed the mark.
And that number is only going to increase because now, as you know, people are getting tired of the protocols. Today, I was washing my hand at a bucket, and this lady came and she just went like this and she finished. So I just looked at her. I said in my head, that wasn't even 5 seconds. And you're supposed to wash it 20 seconds to make an impact. She's gone with it. People are not wearing their masks because they are fatigued. It's tiring. But we don't have to enjoy it.
Is that not understanding of fatigue?
It's fatigue. It's fatigue because this is not your normal lifestyle. And it gets to a certain point where you start becoming uncomfortable with something. It's a choice now. So they'll revert back or they'll just give up. It's two options now. But when you go out and you are driving around town and you see the terminals, people are still standing right next to each other. You go to the market, it's the same thing. The enforcement, well, that's another matter. The media engagement, now we've made the sound to the Ghanaian that, oh, the thing is we're even killing people. So when you go, they give you vitamin C to suck. Then they say go and eat dawa and something, and then you become fine.
Really?
So now people are all right with that. Numbers are going to use it. But what you have at the moment, we have 2 state agencies going out that are going to compel people to come out. The NIA now calling out 3.5 million Ghanaians because you are not going to put these cards in envelopes and send them to post offices and post codes.
Which ideally is what they should have done.
That is what they should have done, but they are still old school. We're not progressive. And then we have the EC that now says everybody come and register afresh. This registration afresh. If you don't have a Ghana card and a passport, find a birth and death certificate and start processing your passport. Or pray that when you go to the Ghana card NIA office, they'll get you a Ghana card in the short time. Because if you want to get rid of Akufo-Addo's government, you must get your name in a register. Now, back to the COVID protocols. You want, according to the EC, after the piloting, you see, during the piloting, we also had people on the ground to monitor for us how the registration was going. On average, it takes 15 minutes to register an individual. Because of the COVID protocols, it takes on average 27 to 30 minutes. Within an hour, they average between
Where did you get those figures
and 3. But we had our people on the ground also. We sent our officers, electoral
but you can't.
also.
You see, for example, the place that they registered, I think it was 73 people.
There are some sporadic places where they managed to do those numbers.
The numbers were quite high because 73. If you look at the number 73 there, if you divide it up per the hours in the day, I don't know how many hours they were out there for. They would have been doing.
No, but there were 16 regions.
Yes.
And here I have a whole list of the performance of each of the regions and how it went. Which ones has systems breakdown? where they registered just 3 people, where the director himself was. I can forward it to you if you want. There's a whole long list of what happened, what transpired at the program.
You go on.
But now,
after
the piloting, the EC then decides that, well, they came up with a statement that they can average 100 people in a day in their polls, in the registrations, and then they can still make up the 30 million people they expect to register. If, I stand to be corrected, I am told that Mr. Afarijan in 2012 registered 12 million people. If in 2020 we're expecting 30 million people, looking at the corresponding increase in our population, is that the rates, the numbers we expect to see in the register, or that is EC's own safe zone numbers? So that looking at what they themselves can do and their projections, this is a fail-safe number for them to work with.
Well, you do realize that quite a lot of people too have also passed on since.
Oh, but if you look at if you look at the structure, if you look at the structure of
deaths, all kinds of things.
No, that's not a good enough reason. If you look at how our structure, our age, this thing is. There are actually smaller percentage of people at the top there young, old, and then it's spread out widely at the base. So we're actually producing more people.
Okay.
So it's not like they were producing more than people dying. In fact.
All right. Please comment quickly on the man who wants to kill
yes. This gentleman that yesterday the national security went and bundled up Rambo style in a V8 from their so-called coded location, who they say is an NDC prophet.
But he claimed it, didn't he?
I haven't seen a video where he claims it.
You haven't seen the video?
But I want to work with him.
In the video, he makes that claim.
But I want to work with him being a prophet. So, here's the thing. I've seen a newspaper article in 2015 where it is said that this same gentleman mentioned that if Mahama wins the election, there's going to be a coup in Ghana. I don't see how an NDC prophet will go in the media and go and say that Mahama should lose the election. Ordinarily, an NDC prophet will find his way to Mahama or his handlers and request an appointment to meet with him and advise him. This is what I have seen.
Okay.
And then you work how to avoid that thing happening. Then I have also seen a video of this same man holding a bottle of communion wine and a bag of communion bread, sprinkling it in front of Akufo-Addo's father's statue and pouring communion wine in prayer to save Akufo-Addo from any disaster and anything that happened to his father, so that the generational curse is not repeated on the son.
I see.
Here is what I think. If this man truly, I don't know what he said. In fact, I saw that video trending, but when you shout, I don't watch those videos because I don't like things that disrupt my peace.
Okay.
So actual things he said, but I've heard people say that he will say that Jean Mensah will die 12 noon or something, something.
So the Accra, the charge sheet is here. I'm going to read the particulars of the offense. It says here, Apostle Kobana Owusu J, age 56 years, pastor, not married. For that you or on about the 4th day of June 2020 at Greda Estate, Nongwa, in the Greater Accra region and within the jurisdiction of this court, without lawful authority, you uttered certain abusive words, to wit, you are stupid woman, foolish woman, senseless Akufo-Addo girl, to the annoyance of Mrs. Jean Mensah, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission of Ghana, with intent to provoke breach of the peace, or whereby a breach of the peace is likely to be occasioned. This is the particulars of the offense that has been.
All right.
Yeah.
So where a person threatens the life of another, there are laws in this country to remedy that. Naturally, it is the police and the CID that invites you or come and arrest you if the person whose life is threatened goes and makes a case.
Yeah.
Now, it is not national security that goes and executes the arrest. That said,
unless it's, of course, it's a national security threat.
Unless it's a national security threat, fair enough.
Yeah.
But now let's address the issue of a man of God. Where he has made utterances which are not right and proper, as I said, you have a legal regime that deals with it. Where you have planted false evidence on him so as to disgrace him, and
why do you say it's false evidence?
And raise false accusations against him. I, Gabriela, I have not called any man of God. But what I do know is that if this man was called by God, where he has fallen short of the law must deal with it.
Okay.
Where you have planted false evidence on him so as to disgrace a man of God, you will also suffer the consequences of what your actions is.
But why do you say false evidence, though?
Yes, because I said I'm speaking from the realms of the prophetic. So it is what it is. And prophetic laws exist as to how prophets are dealt with. And where he has raised serious threat to the EC's whatever.
All right, so
he didn't say he was going to kill
just
the
for
woman.
quick clarification, and then we wrap up here. Statement. So what I read was actually particulars of the offense of the second count. So there are 3 counts against him. The first count is the threat of death, contrary to Section 75 of Criminal and Other Offences Act 1960. That's count 1, and count 2 is the offensive conduct conducive to the breach of peace, which is the one I read the particulars of. And then the third count is possessing narcotic drugs, contrary to Section 2 of PNDC law. Yeah, so let's quickly wrapping up thoughts.
So now there are now 2 things. In your physical laws, the laws that govern man, you have laws against the possession of narcotics. But didn't we pass a law recently about medicinal whatever of marijuana? I don't remember. But
medicinal industrial use.
I thought I read something about that.
It has actually been a repeal of the law for those who are going to be using medicinally and industrially.
So nowadays,
cannabis is no longer illegal.
So nowadays, holding weed is not even a big deal. So now that's which means that they intentionally planted it on him. They intentionally planted it on him, as I said, to disgrace him, and that is a different thing altogether. Because that one, if you are disgracing
but that's an allegation you are making.
No.
You can't prove that they intentionally planted it on him.
That's what I'm saying. That if it is so.
Okay.
If it is so, that one also has how it will be dealt with.
Okay.
And that will not be dealt in the court of law.
The prophetic shall deal with it.
The prophetic, and what happens to Akufado's government, they will deal with it.
A quick comment, final wrap-up comments from you.
Yes, David, I believe with that issue, the court will deal with it, so I don't want to waste much time on it. But I just saw a publication on City Online, 18 November 2016, and I'm quoting the former President John Dramani Mahama referring to the NPP. And I quote, that some of them have gone to the extent of saying the Electoral Commission is preparing to rig elections for John Mahama. What absurd nonsense. Ghana's electoral system is one of the best in the world. Note my words, not in Africa, in the world, because it has inherent instruments for guaranteeing its integrity.
And then in 2016, we lost.
Of the Electoral Commission was being touted, it was being mentioned all over by the former president.
No, it was being
so
by
I don't know why the David, I just want to use my time for this.
Actually, your time is gone. I mean, you had a lot of time at the very beginning. So let me just quickly say a big thank you to my guests. Fatih Abubakar is a Deputy Director of Communications at the Office of the President, and Gabriela Tete is a member of the National Democratic Congress communication team. You sent us a lot of messages. Let me quickly take 30 seconds to do a quick bite on some of the messages. Farouk from Tema says, the integrity of the EC keeps growing. No amount of vilification can destroy that enviable niche they've carved for themselves in Ghana. Sewuku says, now the Parliament has passed or approved CI 126 to accept a passport and Ghana card as documents for the new voters register. The EC, the road is your front. Okay. and so many other more messages. On the 30th of June, this is coming from Walanyo in Equatia. 30th of June shall be the set day for the new register to be compiled. So I entreat all Ghanaians to go to the various polling stations on that D-Day and make sure that you are registered. Thank you very much. We'll be coming back on the next segment, which is Consumer Tech. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
76,000 US dollars only to buy you a studio apartment in Accra. Why not come to Weli for a spacious 2-bedroom apartment at Alphabet City, our brand new gated community situated right on top of the serene Sakomano Lagoon, feeling like splashing a little. Check out our exclusive all-detached house gated community with Jaden Symphonic next door. Sizes range from cozy 3 bedrooms to luxurious 5 bedrooms. We at Weli are committed to provide you with the best building quality and value for money. In fact, we are the proud recipient of 2019's Quality Property Firm Award. We are offering discount up to 5% on Linjadin Symphony or 10% on Alphabet City, who makes a commitment in December. Call us now at 0240-111119 or 0504-499999 to secure your dream home now.
There is nothing as hard as a diamond. For buildings with superior strength that withstand all weather conditions, Diamond Cement should be your preferred choice. Locate Diamond Cement nationwide with factories in Aflao, Takrady and Bupe. Diamond Cement, as hard as a diamond.
So this one says, my wife and I have been married for a year and 7 months, and we're blessed with a 9-month-old daughter. I have a 5-year-old daughter with a woman I was unmarried to. My issue now is I'm seriously considering not having any more children, but I know my wife is eagerly looking forward to us having more kids. I've carefully assessed our marriage, and I'm afraid that we might not be able to handle the general responsibilities of more children.
To be honest, I totally understand this man, especially because children don't ask to be here. So you have to be 110% sure when you're bringing them into this world that you're going to have, enough time. I mean, you're going to give them the right attention, affection, all that they need to be able to make their lives habitable enough on this planet.
By all means, you have to have that conversation with her so she understands where you're coming from. But if she insists, even after hearing your side of the argument, don't push too much.
Before they got married, they should have. Those are some of the conversations. Like I keep saying, there are certain things that are deal breakers. You should at least have some of these conversations. Do you want a large family? Do you want a small family? How are we going to manage our finances and all of that?
Every day at 8 p.m., City Newsroom brings you analysis of the major news stories of the day. It's in-depth, comprehensive, and researched.
Disperse the crowd using tear gas, but more weapons have been fired. And I'm sorry, speaking to you directly from the window of a police station in between two troubles.
Please, I'm just after the fetching of the water. Because the government is saying that they should give us some water freely. But hereby, we are not seeing anybody who is bringing the water for us to fetch.
It's 1 hour of local news from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. The City Newsroom, every day on City TV. It's your world.
This is Fact Finder from the BBC.
We live in a world where news travels fast, and sometimes it's hard to differentiate fact from fiction. Fact Finder brings fact-checking from the newsroom up close so you can separate truth from chaff. Be empowered to tell what's fake from what's real. Watch Fact Finder by the BBC on City TV every Wednesday at 6 p.m. City TV. It's your world.
All right, welcome back. It's time for the consumer tech segment, and the year began. Let's take a look. We're going to have a conversation with Philip Kofi Ashong, who is the host of City Trends on City 97.3 and also the head of TV production here at City TV. He's going to help us to delve into this issue. And Phil, good morning.
Well, good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. People.
What may we have missed?
I mean, I wouldn't say we necessarily missed them, but
okay.
I think what matters most for me is the impact on the industry.
Okay.
I think, and tech and consumer tech generally, I think that is, for me, like the most important bit, because sometimes we hear stories, we see tweets all over the place, and we really don't see the full implications of, the particular thing we're seeing. And
yes.
I just wanted to highlight some of the stories that I found really, really interesting, and then just to give a sense of what it actually means for everyone, within, Ghana, outside Ghana, all over the world.
Okay.
The first one has to do with Elon Musk, actually, and his SpaceX project. A couple of days actually ago, the Falcon 9 was basically launched, which was the first commercially backed space program. And this is the website for SpaceX. The launch happened a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I think for me, what was most interesting was the fact that this is a company that has decided to invest so much in space travel.
Yeah.
Initially, when it started, it was seen as, a big joke, and Musk doing his outrageous things.
Yeah, again.
He's building some tunnel somewhere in the US. Oh, look at him. He's a billionaire or a millionaire. He has money. He doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
CEO of Tesla, Cybertruck, whatever. There were a lot of mistakes with the SpaceX project, which we saw. There were a number of crashes of, the spacecrafts and things like that. He made a lot of mistakes. But what he's done with this particular launch, and the fact that this launch went so well, and for me, what's really impactful is all throughout the journey, Elon Musk and his team ensured that we were updated on what was happening.
Yeah.
If there was a crash, they didn't hide it.
Yeah.
If there was a malfunction, they didn't hide it.
Yeah.
They made sure they put all the information out. Now, what has happened is that the launch itself was telecast live.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's such a big deal is because he is trying to make traveling into space a commercial thing.
Yeah.
Initially, NASA, you had to be trained a certain way. When you look inside the cockpit itself, you can see so many dramatic changes from back in the day.
Yeah.
And what that tells you is how much closer we are to commercializing people being able to go to space.
Okay.
I mean, when you look at the the cockpit and the nature of the cockpit and how simple it was, all touch screen as against buttons and things like that. It was really beautiful. And when you look at, I mean, and viewers can go to the website and have a look at, you know, all the details. So their website is spacex.com, and you can basically follow the story. You can see there, and if we stop, the returning human space flight to the United States, obviously, you know, tapping into that whole MAGA, you know, mantra and things like that. But I mean, gone were the days when we saw spacecrafts that were just buttons all over the place and needed all sorts of things. A lot of these things have been automated. You know, he's made it fun. He's made it look very cool all of a sudden to, you know, be either a scientist or be an astronaut or be someone who's going to space. And for me, I think it's really remarkable. Everything is automated about his system. He's made life so much easier for a lot of astronauts, I'm guessing right now. And it's going to bring a lot more attention. What we're going to see very soon is more and more people signing up to want to travel to space because of what Elon Musk has done. So for me, in terms of just the incident happening, which is the launch of and all of that, it's great, but I think the further implications of it, I think, you know, are pretty incredible. And when you go to the website, you get to see, you know, all the other things that, you know, happened with the project. So that's the SpaceX project that basically Elon Musk is powering on. So for me, that was one of the first trends that really caught my attention. The second trend, and these are just some visuals from the website. If you go there, you get to see, you know, there's a simulator. This is a simulator that sort of gives you a sense of what it looks like, what it feels like to be in the cockpit, to be able to control it. And, you know, and this is what I mean, the commercialization of it. So children now can basically go onto the site, you know, play around with it, get to experience it. You know, they start looking forward to being, what do you call it, astronauts, you know, and playing all manner of roles. And these are the sort of things that I think previously we didn't have, obviously because of the limitations of the technology. But then Elon Musk has been able to make it very, very simple. And now you can, as you can see there, it's almost like you're playing a video game. You know, where you can be in the cockpit and control. I love it. And it's beautiful. And viewers, you can go to spacex.com and check out the simulator. Check out how basically all of this works. See how much fun it is. I mean, some of you have your kids at home. You can get them to play around with it, build an interest in them. You never know. Because of this, we might have, you know,
an astronaut in the family.
You know, an astronaut in the family, and you know, it will be very complimentary. So that for me is the very first trend in Q2 that really caught my attention. The second one has to do with Microsoft laying off journalists. According to reports, about 50 journalists were laid off, and they were laid off from a particular division. The division that's responsible for search, for ads, for news, and then for Edge. So typically, when you go to MSN.com. You have a number of stories on the platform. As you can see there, all these stories. Now, typically, there will be a bunch of humans sitting behind a laptop choosing which stories to go with, sometimes picking from some websites, or sometimes writing original pieces. Now, what Microsoft is doing is that they are using artificial intelligence to pick up the stories that appear on MSN.com. Now, that should tell you something if you're a journalist, if you're looking at, you know, and you're thinking about the future of work. If about 50 journalists can be laid off from Microsoft, and AI basically is picking, and take over. Remember, AI is artificial intelligence, of course. It's putting together sentiments from people from all over the world. What kind of people like which kind of stories. If you're 15 years old living in Africa, or if you're 25 years old living in Nebraska, if you are 65 years old living in Hanoi, like what kind of stories appeal to you? And because of all the history that they've been able to gather about people accessing the website, you know, and the things that they like, the AI is able to target you with specific stories and pick which stories will best suit you and bring you back to the website. And so in some ways, it even ends up being a little more efficient than a human, because it doesn't get tired. It can literally work 24 hours, scouring the entire internet, picking out stories that it knows you might like. And so that for me was a very, very interesting story. It might seem mundane as a story. 5 journalists have been laid off. But then the implications for the future of work is really, really important.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a mundane thing at all. I think it's very critical. I mean, if you're not doing the correct analysis, you probably wouldn't see it. And like you said, I mean, somebody will look at a story and say, this means
the
nothing,
big deal?
you know.
Exactly.
But to think about the fact that artificial intelligence is faster, is more accurate, is more thorough.
It is more thorough. I mean, the one thing that you could argue for, humans is the fact that the sentiments, the ability
emotional
to
intelligence and all that.
The emotional intelligence and all of that. But I mean, look, people need to work. And as Microsoft said on their website about that particular announcement, from time to time, they need to do an assessment of their platform. They need to do an assessment of their business model. If keeping 50 journalists on their business model doesn't work, they will have to find a way around it. And using artificial intelligence, they've been able to find a way around it where they can get a lot more efficiency in terms of the number of stories, for example, that are posted, how frequently they are posted, and all of that. They've been able to work their way around, and for me, I think that was the second most impacting story from this period. Now, the other story that really caught my attention was PlayStation.
Okay.
PlayStation, we all know PlayStation. We all love PlayStation. So when you go to the PlayStation website, PlayStation.com/PS5. So PS5 is a new console that PlayStation is going to announce. They had to postpone it, obviously, because of the riots and things like that. It was going to be an online event. Now, the reason why I wanted to highlight this was because gaming has become a very huge industry globally. It's actually making quite a lot more money than the movie industry is making at the moment. Because, I mean, even now, a lot more people are at home. A lot more people are playing. A lot of the games that we play on our mobile phones require us to sometimes buy, coins, buy this and buy that. And people globally, this is a global thing I'm talking about. Globally, people are doing these things. There are international competitions, EA Sports, eSports, where people are playing video games and making huge sums of money. Fortnite. People making loads and loads of money from Fortnite is one of the most globally recognized brands. Talks about the future of gaming. It brings to mind something that Google, for example, did sometime last year when it introduced Stadia. Stadia is basically an online platform where people can use a subscription-based service to basically play a video game online.
I see.
The limitations obviously were bandwidth and things like that. We've seen a lot of development in the gaming industry globally. Not from just Google with Stadia, not from just Sony with PlayStation. We've seen a lot of things being done, from, for example, Nintendo with Nintendo Switch and all these other games. Gaming globally is changing and it's becoming a big deal. Even in Ghana, when you look at the work by Letty Art, for example, and all the work that they're doing in there, what you're seeing is that people are finding different ways. And when you listen to the industry people, they talk about how gaming is such an important, or plays such an important role in the development of countries because it employs everybody. You have script writers, you have colorists, you have
content
coders, it's such a huge industry. And for me, it's really, really impactful when, for example, Sony talks about the future of gaming, because the future of gaming is not going to be what we've always known it to be, which in the past, I'm sure you had a PS1 where you buy a CD, slot into the
only
game.
one I ever had.
And it's changed so much because now people are downloading the games, they're getting instant updates. For example, if there's a player transfer in EA Sports, FIFA 2020, you get automatically, you download, you can play globally in international competitions. The future of gaming is changing, and I think that it's very, very important, for example, in Ghana, that we start seeing these global trends. Gone are the days when you see someone playing a video game because they are lazy or, that perception. We really need to push that perception away and start thinking about gaming as an industry that can alleviate a lot of people or take people out of poverty and do some pretty remarkable things for the continent of Africa and especially in Ghana. The last trend that I really wanted, or one of the last trends, was Trump and Twitter. A couple of weeks ago, President Trump got very, very upset with Twitter because he tweeted something, and Twitter basically highlighted or did a fact check on the tweet.
Yeah.
And just so people who saw the tweet saw underneath it and noticed that basically said that, these are the facts, these are the real facts relating to the tweets that you're just looking at.
Yeah.
Now, Trump got very, very upset because basically what the details were was that what he had tweeted was actually factually inaccurate.
Yeah.
And he was very, very upset with it. And so he did a number of things. He, of course, went onto Twitter, where he has about 80 million followers, berated Twitter badly. He basically mentioned a Twitter employee and got a lot of people to, go against that Twitter employee. Twitter obviously stood by the employee. And then he has put forward a proposition for the change of a law that basically overlooks the works of some of these tech giants and social media platforms in the US, and it's going to obviously affect them and their work globally. The law basically, so currently if someone puts something on Twitter, Twitter cannot be held liable for what the person has posted.
Okay.
So what the law basically is trying to do is to turn that up on its head.
Okay.
So Twitter must necessarily be responsible, because his argument is if Twitter can come and say that what I've tweeted is wrong, then they should be held responsible for everything else that is supposedly wrong on the platform.
Okay.
And that puts Twitter in a very weird position, because
I guess Twitter could also argue the issue of level of responsibility, right? So if you see somebody is a president,
it can, but the issue is the platform is yours. Anybody who puts something on a platform, whether it's libelous, whether it's untrue, you have to basically put measures in place to ensure that that is not propagated. So hate speech and things like that. So Twitter and all these other social media platforms have these laws and these rules and these obligations of its users as to what they can do and what they shouldn't do. But what this new law that Trump is trying to push is they must be held responsible for the things that are put on the platform. This obviously brings along a lot of problems for these social media platforms, because a lot of these platforms, use AI as well to regulate the sort of content that's on the platform. They advocate for the users to report, but it's not everybody who will report. And so a lot of these things go unchecked. And so it puts these social media platforms in a very weird position. And I think that aside the back and forth and all these conversations about Trump and everything that he's done, the implications of what the future of social media platforms is going to look like is very important, because what then it tells us is it's not going to be business as usual for them. No. We are approaching elections in a lot of countries, and we're going to see a lot of content that's put out by politicians. We saw a couple of years ago, before Trump was elected, about Cambridge Analytica, people's information being used to push a certain agenda. What is it going to look like if, for example, in 4 years or in 5 years' time, when technologies have improved and people have gotten a little more technology savvy? These are some of the questions I think that we need to start really asking ourselves. And these technology companies also need to start thinking about, if you're a Ghanaian company, for example, and a lot of your services are available online, these are some of the questions you should be asking yourself. How are people using my platform to send messages across? How are people using my platform to interact? How are people using my platform generally? How does it reflect on me? Am I breaking a certain law internationally? Am I breaking a certain law locally? I think that some of these trends globally give us a sense of what we should be thinking about as an industry, as users, myself and yourself. We should really start thinking very deeply about some of these things.
Fantastic. I enjoyed that conversation. Phil, so let's quickly wrap it up. We looked at SpaceX. We
looked at Microsoft laying off
the 50 journalists.
About a couple of journalists and preferring the use of AI to select stories. We looked at PlayStation and the future of gaming. We looked at Trump, of course, and Twitter and its implications. But one other thing, quickly before we go, was something I found on Google Maps. And you know what 3 words, SNU code, Ghana Post GPS, they use a certain system to give you an address even if you don't have an address, which is dividing the world into longitudes and latitudes. Now Google Maps is doing something similar. So when you go onto Google Maps and you see a blue dot, tap on the blue dot. Wherever you are, there's an address that has been created for that location. So check it out, and then let's see how that goes.
Interesting. I want to check it out afterwards. You should do the same as well. Thank you very much to Philip Kofi Ashon, who is the host of City Trends. And if you missed City Trends yesterday, it's every Tuesday. You can't afford to miss it. What time is it on Tuesdays?
It is at 7 p.m. every Tuesday. Yesterday, we're looking at planning for the next decade of Africa's education.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big things.
Big things, yes.
All right, so we're going to come back with the next segment, which is Hello, Mr. President. But as we go on break, take a look at the entertainment highlights.
Welcome to Entertainment Highlights on Breakfast Daily. My name is Ato Kwamina. Nana Romeo, who recently sacked Kidi for reporting late to an interview on his show, has done it again. This time, he did not sack anybody. He actually made a statement that aired Ghanaian singer Wendy Shea. During one of Wendy's promotional tour interviews on Accra FM's mid-morning show Ayiko Ayiko on Tuesday, the 9th of June 2020, Nana Romeo repetitively asked her if she was having a sexual affair with her manager Bullet. When Wendy said she found his questions inappropriate, the host Nana Romeo insisted that he had proof that Bullet was sleeping with her. Infuriated by the gesture, she walked out of the studio. Ghanaian musician and chairman of the Ghana Music Rights Association, Rex Omar, has described Akon Nana as an ignoramus who is craving for attention, also describing Akon Nana as frustrated and civilized villager on GH1 TV. He said the shoddy singer does not know anything about Gamro and what their works entail. Rex Omar said Gamro has been audited by the Attorney General and that they always disburse royalties to musicians who have signed their rights to the organization. Yesterday, Akon Nana in a video accused the Gamro chairman Rex Omar of embezzling the organization's money. Akon Nana's rage was stemmed from allegations that Rex Omar had insulted the president Nana Akufo-Addo and had alleged he was wasting money on a private jet. He alleged that Rex Omar claims that they do not generate enough money for musicians, that his salary was huge and has acquired properties from that. After announcing that she was going to take a break from active music, Ghanaian singer Miss Bell is set to make a comeback. Miss Bell is coming back because she has signed a recording deal with an international music record label in Belgium. She wrote on her Instagram page, "Big thanks to Goodies Music International for believing that my brand Miss Bell can easily make it to the international market even at age 40. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be signed on your record label. I promise to do my best and to make Ghana proud once again on the international market. Thank you so much. Oh my God." Miss Bell entered the music scene in 2004 with Awosume. And that's all for Entertainment Highlights on Breakfast Daily. My name is Ato Kwamina.
There is no promise we cannot keep. There is no commitment we cannot honor. There is no delivery we cannot guarantee. There is only one Bethel Logistics Company Limited, a licensed international freight forwarding and clearing agent, a trusted global brand with an extensive network for the movement of air freight and ocean freight worldwide. We are the trusted name for road freight into Western and Northern Africa. We are fully accredited by Ghana Customs and Excise. We cater for all your freight forwarding, customs clearing and forwarding, cross trades, inland transportation, internal cargo tracking systems, customer freight costing and consultancy, cold chain logistics management, logistics and warehousing, quality inspection, and much more. In Accra, Tema and Takrady, we are always available to ensure easy movement of cargo countrywide. Call us on 0204 528 900 or 0244 707 859. Email info@bethellogistics.com. Locate us in Accra at North Ridge, adjacent Accra Girls High School, or in Tema at Community 4, or in Takrady on the second floor of the GCB building. Website bethellogistics.com. Bethlog, experts in shipping logistics.
Welcome back. It's Breakfast Daily on City TV. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now it's time for Hello, Mr. President. All week long, we asked you to send in the concerns that you are having in your community directly to the president via the email hellomrpresidenttv@gmail.com. And you've sent in your messages, so we'll take a look at the very first letter to the president.
Please, Mr. President, we need help in Gulf City. There are no gutters in the area, and whenever it rains, it becomes so difficult to even navigate our roads. Our wastewater has to be disposed of in the road because we don't have gutters. This has been going on for quite a while now, and it breeds a lot of mosquitoes. Please help the Gulf City Graceland community. We are living in very unhygienic conditions. We really wish the government would do something about it. We'll be so grateful if a little attention is given to our community. We need gutters to help with wastewater disposal and to prevent our roads from flooding. Long live His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo. Thank you.
So we received a lot of messages like this from the Gulf City. Right now, the Gulf City was carved out of the Kpong Katamanso district in 2013. And when you carve out a place like that, the idea is to actually provide that area with enough resources for the people there to survive and thrive. But as you can see there, they don't have gutters. That means they just throw their wastewater onto the roads. They don't have good roads, so when they wake up in the morning and it has rained, it is difficult to get from point A to point B. And sadly, most people in that area actually work in Tema. From that place to Tema should ideally take you 15 minutes to get to work, but because of the nature of the road, it takes them at least 45 minutes to get to work. How exactly are they supposed to be productive with this kind of roads? My colleague Elvis Washington, line 0550585832. Let's take a look at Elvis Washington's report about the Gulf City.
The Kpong Katamanso municipality of the Greater Accra region is not very far from the national capital, Accra. It was carved out of the Tema Metropolitan Assembly. The municipality spans from the main Kpong township through to Community 25, Michelle Camp, Bechele, Zenu, New York, Atadeka, Katamanso, Apollonia, and Oyibi, among other communities. The municipality can boast of playing host to several companies, but that doesn't correspond to development here. From poor road network to lack of potable water, unavailability of electricity in some communities, lack of drainage system, among other social amenities, there's very little for the comfort of residents. The road network is really bad, and not a single community can boast of a good road accompanied with proper drainage system. A classic example is Atadeka, New York, Washington, and Switzerland residential areas. The road network to these communities is nothing to write home about. The community roads are full of deep potholes, and the double roads have been narrowed to single lanes. While private cars dread using the road, drivers of commercial vehicles who are forced to use them on a daily basis are constantly complaining about developing faults. This community has a police station, but due to the poor nature of the road, most of the officers who own private cars park them at this fuel station at Atadeka and then hop onto either a motorbike or a commercial vehicle to work. Some frustrated drivers spoke to City News.
Oh, I'm Emmanuel, a citizen of New York. In fact, the nature of this road is very bad. Ever since I came to this town, that was the year 2002, up to date, nothing has been done about this our road. And one thing that I normally think of is this. Always the whole Ghana, always what we understand is demonstration. But the only advice I want to give my fellow citizens around this New York community is that we should get something in mind that we call demo free. Always, because demonstration, you will pass through process. Now that you get to the police station, you go and take permit, a whole lot of things. But I only want to say, for my cherished listeners, that in fact, if it will be possible, day that it will rain, or we have a heavy downpour of rain, all commercial vehicles, we should do what? We should just park. Okada drivers, taxi drivers, trotro drivers, we should just park our cars just for one day and see whether our leaders, our stakeholders, whether the way they normally park their cars, if it happens that there's a heavy downpour, they don't bring their vehicles home. They normally park it at filling stations and then they will charter away the taxi drivers or car to their various homes. If it will be best, any day that we will see that there will be a heavy downpour, the only thing we do is we do what? We park all our vehicles down.
My name is Yabo Alabi. The nature of this road is very, very bad, not good at all. Some of the potholes are manholes now, and some of the manholes are becoming big gutters and a valley, so we can pass. You can see the road is not good at all. As at now, I've even been to the workshop and I'm returning to work because you can see passengers in my car. The money is for shop, only watch and some small cocoa that we drink. All the money I've been using for shop. So we pledge that the government will come and help us, assist us so that we can do the road.
My name is Oliver. We are in Peaceland, Papaya community. Our road is not good at all. If rainfall, we can go. The school children they can go school. Last time we went to the community, Papaya community people. They went to assembly. They led DC. No, he just said that okay, the area they are not paying this. How do you call it? This how do you call it? A property rate. So they can't do anything for them. So even we get some distance to do the gutters and things, but he said that even if we do that himself, he will come and break the. So we are fighting.
The residents who have constantly appealed to government to fix the road say they are fed up and they will soon embark on a 2-day demonstration if nothing is done about the situation. The community has no drainage system, and this very one that was started some years ago has been abandoned halfway through, leaving residents to divert their wastewater onto the road. Each time it rains heavily, these communities, namely Switzerland, Newland, Peaceland, and its environs, are cut off due to the unavailability of a permanent bridge.
Your friend, my sister, Peace. I had New York station. Equa Peaceland. You can na free at car junction. Sa basic peace. And yasem kitwa. Equani de nya kura no me my. So I move fast by way. Equani de nya. Nasa nkanya nyame a kwala ya kita me nkamenya. Kwani de nya kura. Wuti kam kura je se wuso driver na chi. No wapeja wutu kakra. Enya se pim ho a wayase. Ti yesrew. God and soon you could Obia Junswa, a quamu. Obia Solano pa, a quamu, no more you mujun sweat go quamu. A jalienso, and one year from why you did tremble. Why, yes, I was yes, you now unam crum, now suffer femu. T.S. Ramu. I buy my hair. No, yes, you quite no my.
Oh, she said, no, quantity be there. In fact, or can say so many years. As you see, no, and you'll be obeyed and obey me. It went to her. There was so many man. We now where the Obiam were here. In Sioyati, Yaka, a quarter of partner says, it's so quite me join because he can't ask and look shop. And you be a goes went to her there 24 years since we only stopped. And Pinana was IBC Nanado, Netam. You will be about Yamahe. From Atalaka, her new route. Behind you, be a man, she, Peaceland. When are you crew? Who else in the more? And you'll be a, it is a bamboo to my bubble here, they are on board here.
Residents in and around Atadeka are unhappy with the nature of their roads, and as such, they are appealing to governments to come to their aid. For City News, my name is Elvis Washington reporting from Atadeka.
So that's my colleague Elvis Washington, and I must say that I visited that area a little over a week ago. And my colleague Kojajman and I literally had to park the car we were in at that filling station, get in a taxi. Now the roads are so bad that the taxi cannot speed at all. So the taxi driver has to keep moving the car as if it's a snail. the windows are down. We have to breathe in this dust before we get to our destination. And when you look at where the filling station is to inside New York where we were going, ideally should have taken us 10 minutes to get there. But because the roads are so bad, it took us over 50 minutes to get to our location. And the taxi driver actually told us that we were lucky because it had not rained the day before. If it had rained, we would have taken much longer to get to our destination. Now, the people living in this area, this Gulf City area, this Katamanso area, are people who usually work in Tema. But because they can't afford to live in Tema, that's why they've come to these areas. This means that they can't pay to fix the roads themselves. They can't fix the gutters themselves. And granted, policymakers are doing the best they can. We want to fix it. People are moving in faster than they can develop the area. But 7 years in, we can't say that we are proud of the nature of these roads. And this district, it's in the Greater Accra region. This isn't some far village somewhere that we'll say it's in some rural part of the country. So we are taking long to develop that place. It's sad. It does not help as far as human capital is concerned. If you want your citizenry to be productive, it does not help for them to spend 30 minutes, 40 minutes extra on a dusty road every single day because we've just turned a blind eye to fixing that place. Last year, we spoke to the MCE of that same area, and this is what he had to say.
What are these timelines that these people can hold you to so that they can come back to you in case nothing is done on their roads by that time?
Or 2 weeks' time, I'll make sure all the roads are in motorable states for them.
In 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks. I'm doing the lettering, I'm doing the auditing, and then shaping of the road will follow.
This was in November 2019. We are now in June 2020, and absolutely nothing has changed. Again, this district that we're talking about was carved out of Tema. And when you carve out a district, the whole idea is to promote decentralization, to ensure that the people there have an equal access to resources so that they can thrive within wherever it is they find themselves. You heard the lady. Pregnant women have to get on that road. Imagine your own wife sitting in a taxi, sitting behind an Okada driver, traveling on that road. The chances of her miscarrying is very high. Children have to be on that road. The amount of health problems that they will get from constantly breathing in that dust, and the nature of that road is just so sad, and it's not something we should be dealing with in this 21st century Ghana. The people there deserve better. They can't. Over 100,000 people live in that area, but they fall beneath that whole line of middle income to very low income class. So we need our policymakers to address this. It's an election year. These same people are going to go out and vote. What do they have to show for being active participants of their development? They are not asking for anything. They are just saying, we need you to fix our roads. I've not even touched on the problem of malaria. They don't have gutters. So they just throw their wastewater on the same road. It breeds mosquitoes. Children, women, men who are supposed to productively contribute to the development of their environment and their country will end up getting sick because they don't have gutters. We expect policymakers to do better. This is a fundamental human rights issue. And we want to hear from you as well. Do you have any bad roads in your area? Have your leaders fixed those problems for you? And how is that deterring your own personal development as a human being? Let us hear with the hashtag Breakfast Daily and the WhatsApp line 0550-585832. we're following up with this story. We'll be getting in touch with the MCE to see all these months from November till June. You said you're going to fix this problem in 2 weeks. We've not seen any progress. When it floods, people can't go anywhere. They can't move because the roads are just so bad. You heard the taxi driver saying, we don't want to be on this road anymore because it's not good for human beings to be on. We'll follow that story. We also have another story that has to do with SHS and our primary schools. Well, mainly SHS. We fixed free SHS problems, but what's the kind of environment that our students are learning in, and how does that contribute to making them globally competitive, if we may? So we'll hear that letter to the president and then continue the show.
Hello, Mr. President. You are a great leader and you are very tenacious. Mr. President, the free SHS policy you have rolled out is very important and helpful. Access and quality of education are very important. Free SHS has increased access, but I'm not sure about the quality. Mr. President, the current living quarters and classroom conditions of the students diminishes the quality of their education. There's so much infrastructure deficit. A lot of students are residing in unsupervised hostels, classrooms, and these hamper their learning experience and impede creativity among students. Mr. President, you need to pay attention to the infrastructure needs of the schools and also renovate existing facilities. Very important. I think that companies and organizations should support free SHS. Quality graduates means quality employees.
So there you have it. It has to do with free SHS. Now, we must say that access to free education is a basic human right. It's actually guaranteed in our Constitution. But historically, we've struggled to make that happen. A lot of us have friends we grew up with who could not go to school and are now living below the poverty line. What this government has done is commendable. All your houseboys and housegirls that you used to see around are now in school. And what that means is that they have an equal opportunity of at least getting a scholarship to the university and transforming their lives. But while we look at education, we also need to tackle where the students are studying. Because if you are in an environment that is not conducive to your development, you cannot concentrate. You can't be your best. So it's important for us to begin to now see that, yes, they have free education. But what kind of desk are they on? You walk into some of our public schools and you have 3 students to 1 desk. There's no space for them to even feel comfortable, let alone pay attention to what the teacher is saying. What's the availability of books like? Do they even have libraries? What are the sanitation conditions of these schools? You can talk to a senior high school student and she'll tell you, I've not been to school in a week because I don't have a good place to change when I'm menstruating. So it's good that we have free SHS, but we have to begin to look critically at these infrastructural problems because we want to grow the next generation of Ghanaians who are going to be globally competitive. If they are competing against students in other parts of the world who have a good environment to study in, who have good desks, good books, good teachers, everything that they need has been provided. All they need to do is just sit down and concentrate. You can see how difficult it will be for these same students to be their absolute best. So to the policymakers, we are pleading with you that we need to begin to figure out how to improve on where we've started from. We've done good. Free SHS is a good start, but we need to provide the additional resources that the students need to be the best versions of themselves. If you have a student in a free SHS policy and the schools are doing well, let's hear those stories as well so we can learn from the experiences of those schools. Use the hashtag Breakfast Daily and the WhatsApp line 0550-585832 for us to hear from you. And if you want to write a letter directly to the president for us to address next week, Wednesday, take out your phone and take a 1-minute video or up to 250 words message directly to the president. Send it to us at hellomrpresidenttv@gmail.com and we will show it right here on City TV every Wednesday at 9:30 for the entire country to see how things are going in your community, how far policymakers have come to addressing some of these issues they said they will address when they were looking for your votes, and what more we need to do to ensure that you achieve your potential within whatever community you find yourself. We've received some messages from you guys, so I'll read them briefly. Senu Kweku Freedom says, please, it is so horrible. The same thing is happening at Ningo within the Ningo Pram district. Raymond Abiwu says, with all these conditions, we are wasting millions of dollars on needless voters register. Ghanaian leaders are unbelievably nefarious. Ghana desperately needs a leader. Richard Van Dalgley says, he will put the blame on coronavirus. I don't know who the he you are referring to is. Emmanuel Bonnie J says, so do these people have an MP at all? Ajinkwa says, I'm Hansi, watching you from Cove Town City. Richard Van Dalgley says, these politicians in suits are dangerous to the development of this nation. We need to do better, and the way we get bettable, and we are throwing it at you to show the world what your community looks like. So if you have road problems, if things are not working the way it should, if things in your community are directly hindering your development, take your phone out, send us up to a 1-minute video. Let us see exactly what's happening in your community. If you don't have a phone, you can text us up to 250 words, and we will throw the spotlight on what's happening in your area. The email is hellomrpresidenttv@gmail.com, and the WhatsApp line is 0550-585832. Don't go anywhere. Breakfast Daily will be right back.
Imagine if you can get all the understanding on some of the difficult subjects you struggle with in school. As a student, do you feel dissatisfied with how hard it is to figure out the subjects you're learning? Or as a parent or guardian, do you worry that your child is struggling to understand some of the subjects in school? Well, now you don't need to sign up for extra lessons or tutors. Simply tune in to Class Act, Mondays to Thursdays at 5:30 p.m. on City TV. Class Act is a show that seeks to enable senior high school students gain a much better understanding of what they learn in school. All you need is a TV, a chair, your notebook, and your pen. Get clarity on subjects such as maths, English, IT, and science. Class Act airs every Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on City TV on DSTV channel 363 and GoTV channel 182. Don't forget your pens, pencils, and your notebooks, and tune in to Class Act, only on City TV.
Ghana is a beautiful country. There is so much of it you probably haven't seen, haven't experienced, haven't touched, haven't felt, haven't eaten. When this is all over, let's discover our land again with new eyes. Let's feel each other again. We are one people, brought together by destiny. Let's make that count. Let's show love for each other and our environment. Let's tell our stories, and let's watch and listen to our stories. There will be so much to tell. Ghana is a truly beautiful country. Be Ghana, stay in Ghana, experience Ghana, make Ghana great. And we will invite the world to come and experience Ghana too. But for now, stay home. Brought to you by the National Film Authority. Supports the Stay Home and Discover Ghana Later campaign. This channel supports the campaign.
God bless our homeland,
Welcome back. It's Breakfast Daily on City TV. Thank you guys so much for staying with us.
Yeah, fantastic edition of Hello, Mr. President. I think we need to solve these issues. You know, our duty bearers really need to get to the ground and get to work. There's a lot to do. Anyway, so we have Keyboard Idol coming up. It's a very, very important and exciting reality event that's coming up. It's a talent competition. It's going to be, you look at the grand prize there, huge money, 10,000 Ghana cedis to win. It's going to be, the deadline for entries for everyone is 26th of June. Now, what we need you to do is to record a 2-minute max video of your best performance on a keyboard. Any kind of keyboard, piano, what are the other kinds of keyboards? Piano, accordion, you know, any kind of keyboard, synthesizer, and so on. But you must be below 15 years of age. It's very, very important. Submit your entry to 0558-973-973. It's important. Also include your guardian's name, your and your age, contact number, and so on and so forth. It's very important that you fill these details and make sure your entry gets to us latest by 26th of June. And this is Keyboard Idol. You cannot miss it, all right? It's your chance to make yourself famous. Don't sit in your room and be famous in your room by yourself.
And we're still in our City Business Festival, okay? City Business Festival is a month-long dedicated to helping you grow your business. So we have on-air and off-air conversations that are geared towards helping your business grow. We're doing things a little differently this year with our virtual forum. We started out with Reboot, restarting your business after COVID-19. Yesterday, we had e-commerce, exploring new ways of engaging your customers. Next week, we'll be talking about agribusiness. How do you create another career in agribusiness? And then finally, the last week of June, we'll be looking at trade. Will export trade be the same again? If you want to participate in this, you must register by calling us at 0205-973-973 or at 0558-973-973. Registration is absolutely free, and it's a great opportunity for you to join us via Zoom and ask all the questions you have. For obviously, City Business Festival has been made possible by City TV and Absa Bank with support from GIPC.
Fantastic. Well, Divine, it's been a good morning. I have enjoyed the show. I trust that you have all enjoyed it as well. My name is David Kwekusechi.
And I am Jifa Ekia Amatam. Do stay safe, enjoy your day, and we will see you at 7:30 tomorrow. Bye.
Take care.
This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Gido-Yort. It's Tuesday, June 9th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of coronavirus, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future, as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on and appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Family and friends are set to honor George Floyd with a private funeral Tuesday in the U.S. city of Houston 2 weeks after his death in police custody, inspired renewed protests against police brutality in numerous cities across the country. After the funeral, Houston police will escort the funeral procession to the nearby city of Pearland, Texas, where Floyd will be buried. The U.S. protests in support of George Floyd have triggered demonstrations in other countries, with people showing both solidarity with those marching in the United States and calling attention to cases in their own countries. In South Africa, demonstrators led by the ultra-left economic freedom fighters gathered outside U.S. missions in Pretoria, Johannesburg, and Cape Town, according to Reuters. In Houston and North Carolina, hundreds gathered to say their final goodbye to George Floyd. Here in Washington, D.C., House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and other lawmakers took a knee in the Capitol and held a moment of silence. This comes as thousands continue to protest worldwide against racial injustice. VOA correspondent Maria Diallo has more.
We are here to honor George Floyd.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi led House and Senate Democrats in a moment of silence at the Capitol's Emancipation Hall. They took a knee for nearly 9 minutes to symbolize the length of time prosecutors say George Floyd, handcuffed and face down, was pinned under a white police officer's knee before he was later pronounced dead at a Minnesota hospital. Floyd's death sparked worldwide protest against police brutality and racial injustice. Over the weekend, thousands more continued to protest. Floyd's death also prompted the National Football League Commissioner Roger Goodell to say that the league was wrong for not listening earlier to players fighting for racial equality.
We, the National Football League, believe Black Lives Matter. I personally protest with you and want to be part of the much-needed change in this country. Without Black players, there would be no National Football League. And the protests around the country are emblematic of the centuries of silence, inequality, and oppression of Black players, coaches, fans, and staff.
Meanwhile, in Minneapolis, Floyd's girlfriend and others gathered at a park on Saturday to remember Floyd and relieve him.
Floyd is here with us. He loves us, and I've been wanting for a long time, and whatever religion you are, however you pray, I've been wanting to thank Father God and be with a group of people that love him and support us, and just thank Father God. Thank you, Father God, for giving us Floyd.
Floyd was also remembered in his North Carolina hometown by mourners who waited hours for a glimpse of his golden coffin. And in Houston, Texas, the final of a series of memorials in Floyd's honor, the public was able to view his casket at the Fountain of Praise Church. Floyd will be buried at the Houston, Texas Memorial Gardens Cemetery, where he will be laid to rest next to his mother. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
Black Lives Matter protesters flooded the streets of European cities again at the weekend in solidarity with demonstrations in the United States, which were triggered by the death of a 46-year-old African-American man, George Floyd, 2 weeks ago in Minneapolis. The protesters in Britain and in other European cities are tapping into deep-rooted anger over a perceived lack of understanding of their country's colonial histories. Henry Ridgwell reports from London.
In Bristol, a city that once boomed on the profits of slavery, a statue of Edward Colston, a 17th century slave trader, was torn down Sunday. It was long a divisive symbol, a tribute to a man who built schools and hospitals, but who enslaved tens of thousands of black Africans, shipping them across the Atlantic, a journey that killed many men, women and children.
We have to walk these streets and see that statue of Colston's every day.
That's what it means. That statue is a kick in the face to all black people. It's a disgrace. And now look at it. Now look at it. Gone. You're gone. I'm gone.
The toppling of the statue mirrors similar debates in the United States, where activists have demanded the removal of statues honouring Confederate-era figures like General Robert E. Lee in Virginia. Bristol's mayor sympathises with the protesters in his city.
We have a city to run, we need to have order. But if you fail to understand these kind of events, then you create the conditions for more and bigger types of events like these, in the future. It's a very significant symbolic act, but it doesn't deliver the affordable homes, the job opportunities, the educational opportunities, the access to the, professions, political power, economic power that actually underpins race inequality.
The British government takes a different view.
Sheer vandalism and disorder completely is unacceptable, and it's right actually the police follow up on that and make sure that justice is undertaken.
Protests erupted in several cities across Britain over the weekend. Tens of thousands of people marched on the US Embassy in London.
I've just had enough of it. I'm sick of having to explain to my children that because they're black, they have to act a certain way, they have to behave a certain way, they have to work 10 times harder to get anywhere in life.
There were violent clashes between some demonstrators and police in London. 22 officers were injured, including a policewoman who fell from her horse after it bolted. The riderless horse trampled a protester. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the demonstrations had been subverted by thuggery. In Glasgow, Scotland, activists changed the names of streets linked to slave traders. In Belgium, protesters defaced a statue of King Leopold II, who oversaw the killing of millions of Congolese during colonial rule. Back in Bristol, the fallen statue of Edward Colston was dumped into the harbour, where his slave ships used to dock 350 years ago. Critics of its destruction say the statue was an important reminder of a dark and complicated history. Others say its raising has done far more to educate Britons about black oppression, a history that for many resonates deeply today. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
Diving deeper into why the protests in 2020 seemingly have more momentum than years past, VOA Steve Miller, host of the International Edition radio program, reached out to Dana Weiner, Associate Professor of American History at Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo, Canada. Miller began by asking Weiner about the intersection and trajectory of issues affecting African Americans and police brutality.
Many people are inspired by the ongoing protests that are happening in the last few weeks since George Floyd's death. And in many of your listeners' home countries, people of all backgrounds have been, as you said, rising up, coming to the streets. And despite the particular dangers of the COVID-19 pandemic, and people are sharing sorrow, they're sharing anger and sentiments of solidarity around the world. But this has a very long history. And it's important to recognize that these protests are not only about Mr. Floyd himself and people's, but many people have known around in the U.S. and around the world for centuries that there's a problem with race-based police brutality and widespread anti-Black violence more generally. Many scholars and activists trace the origins of U.S. policing back to slave patrols during the time of slavery. So when some people are looking at these phenomena, they're seeing a through line going all the way back to a time when it was legal to own people. And also going along with that in terms of things that have escalated police brutality, in many jurisdictions, police departments have become increasingly militarized. You can trace that back to the 60s and the 70s, but it really has also picked up a lot really in the last several decades.
Speaking of 1968, because that is the year that a lot of people are drawing parallels to, because you look online and you see pictures of police lines, you see pictures of protesters. As a historian of American history, What are you seeing as potential parallels, similarities, and any discrepancies or differences?
Historians are always talking about context. You'll hear from most of us, no two times are the same. So I would say there definitely are parallels, but there are limits to those parallels between these historical moments. You can see parallels in the sense that they're both moments in which people have risen up against multiple sources of oppression, including a strong movement by African Americans and like-minded folks against what we now call structural racism. In both eras, freedom of assembly has been absolutely vital, and the crackdown on freedom of expression and police violence against protesters has inspired more people to take to the streets. The uprisings in 1968 were most directly triggered by the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but they were also part of a long-running wave of protests about civil rights and about the Vietnam War, among other issues. Of course, notoriously, you're talking about the images, the 1968 Democratic Convention was rife with police conflict with protesters. And as an outcome of the turmoil in 1968, Richard Nixon, who was the Republican candidate for president that year, was able to present himself as a law and order man and claim the nation would be safer in his hands in the future, was able to become president that year, of course. In terms of the current sitting president, Donald Trump has an overtly pro-policing approach in terms of his messages. And for decades, he has identified with that law and order kind of stance. We can date this back to his pre-political days in New York, most notably his actions in the 1989 Central Park 5 case.
It's very interesting to see how these effects of these protests are bringing about change almost seemingly more rapidly than those in 1968.
Certainly, and that is something that many people are taking heart from. Many people are drawing solidarity from the visible results they're seeing from the protests. These include such results as the arrests and the increase in charges of the officers involved in George Floyd's killing and the cancellation of contracts in police forces for schools in Minnesota and in other jurisdictions. So there are actually lists circulating of, look at all these things that are happening, look at this rapid action. And it does seem to be perhaps between the scale of the protests and their global nature, and also potentially, possibly the role of technology in circulating all sorts of information, that this moment has the potential for outcome.
And lasting change, perhaps.
Perhaps, yes.
All right. Dr. Dana Weiner is an associate professor of American history at Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo, Canada. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day to speak with us.
Thank you.
That was VOA Steve Miller speaking with Dana Weiner, Associate Professor of American History at Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo, Canada. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, how one restaurant in Ivory Coast has been impacted by COVID-19. We'll be right back after this break.
Hello, I'm Lenore Moudou, your VOA health correspondent.
Let us be perfectly clear. All countries.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, the World Health Organization says there is no information or evidence suggesting that the coronavirus can be transmitted by mosquitoes.
There are 2 published studies.
It is a respiratory virus which spreads primarily through droplets, generated when an infected person coughs or sneezes, or through droplets of saliva or discharge from the nose.
This happens during pandemics in the past.
For more information on COVID-19, visit who.int or contact your local or national health authorities.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Global COVID-19 lockdown restrictions may have prevented 3 million deaths from coronavirus, according to information revealed in a new study by the Imperial College of London. According to the latest figures from the US-based Johns Hopkins Institute, the total number of COVID-19 infections worldwide now stands at just over 7.1 million people, with at least 406,000 confirmed deaths The United States is the leader in both categories, with total infections at nearly 2 million and more than 111,000 deaths. Now to Nigeria, where the health minister says up to 60% of the mystery deaths in Kano State in recent months were likely due to COVID-19. Osagie Ehanire says 979 deaths were recorded in 8 local government areas in Kano State, peaking in the second week of April. Kano State officials had said the deaths were caused by complications from hypertension, diabetes, meningitis, and acute malaria, and not coronavirus. Nigeria currently has over 12,000 confirmed coronavirus cases and at least 350 deaths. In other health news, AMREF is a non-profit organization dedicated to increasing sustainable health access to African communities. Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu spoke with Camilla Knox-Peebles, CEO of AMREF Health Africa UK, to discuss the organization's work in Africa and some of the priorities during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Camilla Knox-Peebles, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Lino. Hi.
First of all, would you briefly tell us about AMREF? What is the mission of the organization and some of the services provided, particularly in Africa?
AMREF works in 35 countries in Africa. It provides healthcare to marginalized and disadvantaged communities in both rural and urban areas. And its work spans from providing healthcare training to health professionals like nurses and midwives, but also to community health workers. And it also pays a lot of attention to the actual enabling environment for good health by ensuring that those same communities have access to clean water and sanitation. Now, currently, during the pandemic, we are working very closely with Africa CDC, Africa WHO, and other stakeholders and ministries of health in a number of different countries to increase the diagnostic capacity in country on COVID-19, and as well as the testing capacity.
What kind of impact are you seeing on the communities that you service with regards to COVID-19? How much of an impact?
So the impact varies a little because the measures of different governments have been a little different, yeah? And what we're seeing is that regardless, what's happening is because COVID-19 is so much in the news, that there's quite a lot of fear and mistrust around what exactly it is. And we're starting to see a reluctance to, for example, in women going to antenatal and postnatal clinics, ensuring that they have that care, especially in the case of Uganda, actually. We're also seeing an increase because in all cases, schools are closed. We're starting to see an increase in things like negative practices like female genital mutilation. We're seeing a slight rise in that as girls are no longer in schools. Those are some of the first incidences. And the other thing I would say is that treatment for other terminal diseases is so important. Tuberculosis, HIV/AIDS is also, there's a decline in people searching and getting that treatment.
We're seeing a big problem with frontline workers being affected in this pandemic. So what is the case with community health workers? How do you protect them?
Given that they have that relationship, making sure that they have some basic personal protective equipment, so the mask and gloves. So we're ensuring that one of the jobs and one of the tasks and work that we're doing is around procuring and providing PPE to different cadres of health professionals, but including community health workers. So that's one. I think their role is critical, not only around COVID-19 and ensuring that they're protected, but also around ensuring that people continue to go to the health clinics for other non-COVID-19 reasons. So, ensuring that people get their treatment for HIV/AIDS or attend the antenatal clinic, all that is also equally critical. And I would say finally, ensuring testing much more, the more testing we have, the stronger the stronger position we will be in to have an idea of trends and where the cases are, and then to start contact tracing and so on. Without that testing, we have the PPE and the physical distancing, which is the advice and guidelines that we've been given, but not much else, and that's really quite critical.
What is the priority for AMREF during this COVID-19 pandemic?
So the priority is really is training those community health workers so they can really spread the word, work with communities, be creative on how they spread the word. So we've been doing ads on TV. We're working with young people to spread the word through social media. So really awareness raising on prevention and on identifying the signs. Then the second priority beyond raising awareness is ensuring frontline workers are equipped, so PPE and so on. And then the third priority is ensuring we do not disinvest in all the other essential health services and diseases like TB, malaria, HIV/AIDS, and so on, as well as the very important antenatal and postnatal care.
Ms. Knox Peebles, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Lino. Thanks.
That was Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu speaking to Camilla Knox Peebles, CEO of AMREF Health Africa UK. Scientists worldwide are looking for a vaccine that protects against COVID-19. Others are searching for a treatment to knock out the virus until a vaccine is available. VOA's Carol Pearson reports that researchers in Sweden are optimistic about their work on a treatment that could slow the progression of the disease, ease the symptoms, and save lives.
Tyson may become the world's most famous alpaca. Researchers from the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm have immunized him with coronavirus proteins and isolated tiny antibodies, known as nanobodies, in his blood. Antibodies are proteins that are produced by your immune system when it senses the body has been infected with a virus or another foreign body. The proteins then try to kill it off. Nanobodies are far smaller than the antibodies humans produce, and nanobodies bind to the same part of the virus that human antibodies do. Gerald McInnery is one of the scientists working on this project.
So these are the antibodies that we took from the alpaca's blood cells, and we can see that those antibodies are bound right on the surface, exactly at the point that the viral protein needs to get into cells. And so this gives us a structural understanding of how these antibodies work to stop the infection.
McInnery says the results will be published in a few months. The work could lead to a drug that would help reduce the amount of virus in a patient's blood, while the immune system develops its own response to the infection.
All the evidence would suggest that it will work very well in humans, but it's a very complex system, so we look forward to getting to do those experiments.
A vaccine could take years to develop, which is why the scientists at the Karolinska Institute focused on developing a treatment. It could help stop the pandemic while a vaccine is being developed that offers long-term immunity. Carol Pearson, VOA News, Washington.
Today, in our series COVID-19 Diaries from Ivory Coast, we take you to Abidjan, where the measures to slow the coronavirus outbreak have been reduced. The 2-month curfew has been lifted, and the traditional open-air restaurants called Marquis have been allowed to reopen. Akabla Beayude is a restaurant owner whose business has been negatively affected by the crisis.
The damage is tremendous, and it has a domino effect. You see, I am a restaurant owner. I employ people, and these people rely on the income that comes from my restaurant. So suddenly it all stopped. Everything related to it, too. The purchases, the contacts, the deliveries. It's like a chain. It all goes down, too. It also has an impact there, so the damage is really huge. I can say without exaggerating that it created a sense of misery. We have not received any help from the government. I wonder if we ever will. During their decision-making, they did not take us into consideration. If they want to help, they need to be organized. And we weren't even considered, although we pay our taxes. On what basis will they compensate or help? So no, I have not been compensated, and I will not be compensated. In the transportation sector, contamination happens very, very, very fast. They let them work while taking precautionary measures. But they did not do so for catering. Catering is necessary. They could have organized us as well. Asked us, for example, to distance clients a meter apart. We also shouldn't limit ourselves to ways to stop the pandemic. What about afterward? If I open tomorrow, I will insist that my clients wash their hands when they enter and when they leave the restaurant. So that's how the pandemic affected us. The future rests in God's grace.
Wednesday, we'll visit Cameroon, where the general manager of Atipec Auto will explain how the COVID-19 crisis is affecting his business. So be sure to join us. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.
This is Fact Finder from the BBC.
We live in a world where news travels fast, and sometimes it's hard to differentiate fact from fiction. Fact Finder brings fact-checking from the newsroom up close so you can separate truth from chaff. Be empowered to tell what's fake from what's real. Watch Fact Finder by the BBC on City TV every Wednesday at 6 p.m. City TV. It's your world.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world.
Hello there, welcome to 2020 News on City TV. My name is Michael Obodu. Coming up, Electoral Commission announces Tuesday, June 30 as a day to begin registration for a new voter roll. Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, CODIO, calls on EC to consider its decision to exclude existing voter ID as proof of citizenship. Now let's go to our first story. The Electoral Commission EC says it will begin the voters' registration exercise for the 2020 election on Tuesday, June 13. The announcement comes a day after Parliament passed the Public Election Regulation 2020 CI 126 to govern the 2020 general election. In a letter addressed to the General Secretary of the NPP, John Buedu, and signed by Deputy EC Chair Dr. Bosman Asare, the Commission says registration will take place in EC registration centres and district offices across the country. Here are excerpts of the EC letter read by City News' Ni Ayikwe Okai.
I bring you warm greetings from the Electoral Commission and trust that this letter finds you well. This letter comes to inform you that the 2020 voters registration exercise has been scheduled to commence on Tuesday, the 30th of June 2020. The registration will be held at all registration centres and district offices of the Electoral Commission throughout the country. Should you require further information, do not hesitate to contact me.
Meanwhile, the NPP has begun training its party officers ahead of the voters' registration exercise. National organizer of the NPP, Samir Wuku, who is currently in the Upper West region, says the NPP will be ready when the exercise begins.
We are in the region to also take our party executives through a training exercise on what to look out for when it comes to the registration exercise and how to prepare for it, to also so they can be vigilant. And in as much as that they need to work as party agents in collaboration with the Electoral Commission, we also have to open our eyes to ensure that nobody also takes the New Patriotic Party for granted during the exercise. We also came to educate them and train them on the do's and don'ts at registration centers, so that they also do not fall foul of the law and also do not become agents of distraction or disruption at the various registration centers. The issue of party discipline. In recent times, and for the past few days, we've had some members of our party deciding to exhibit anti-party conduct, at the least instance resorting to the invocation of curses and misbehaving towards party leadership and party establishment. We are also using the opportunity to also educate and sound a word of caution that the party's disciplinary procedures are still in force, and anybody who runs contrary to the dictates and provisions in our constitution will also be dealt with.
Now, the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, CODIO, has asked the Electoral Commission EC to reconsider its decision to exclude the existing voter ID card from the list of acceptable documents for registering onto the yet-to-be-compiled new voters register. Making the call, CODIO pointed out that the passport and Ghana card as the only legitimate document for registration might present a difficulty on the part of qualified citizens in exercising their right to register to vote. In a statement, CODIO says there may be an abuse of the guarantor system in which some registered voters may turn themselves into guarantee contractors, vouching for the eligibility of all manner of persons who might be in fact unqualified to be registered. Now, Ghana's COVID-19 cases is now 10,201. This follows the confirmation of 291 new cases of coronavirus in the country. This was confirmed by the Ghana Health Service on Tuesday, June 9, 2020. The new cases were recorded in 9 out of the 16 regions in Ghana. The Greater Accra region recorded 85 of the new cases. Ashanti region recorded 65. Volta region recorded 56. The Central region recorded 50. Oti region recorded 10. Western and Eastern region recorded 9 each. Bunu East region also recorded 6, and the Ahafu region also recorded its first case. Meanwhile, some 110 persons who tested positive for the disease have recovered, pushing the recoveries count to 3,755. Greater Accra region is still leading the charts with 6,521 cases, followed by the Ashanti and Western regions with 1,799 and 778 cases, respectively. Now, the Ablekuma West Municipal Assembly has served notice of demolition of buildings in waterways at Otojo, a suburb of Dansoman in Accra, after a building audit. After a 5-hour downpour on Tuesday morning, homes of residents got flooded. Most of the residents who were counting their losses at the time of City News' visit suggested that the Assembly construct drains in the area. But the Assembly says this is not the solution, placing emphasis on a building audit. George Serobre is the Municipal Chief Executive of the Ablekuma West Municipal Assembly.
This is not an area that is earmarked for houses to be.
But yet people are building.
Yes, people are encroaching. They are not building, they are encroaching. That is the problem. That is the crux of the problem, because every area that government has earmarked or has schemed as a place for either factories or houses or whatever, there is a plan. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in an area where, if you check from even Lands Commission, it's a Ramsey site.
Yes.
The owner of this property feels you can't construct a gutter in front of her house, so she had virtually blocked it with sand. You know, there are several agencies we need to engage, because once it's a Ramsey site, then it means wildlife and all those guys come into the fray, right? So we need to engage all of them and see how best to go about it, because once you have encroached, one of the easiest ways to say we are going to pull down all the structures.
The National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, says it will intensify public education on the prevention of floods in a bid to curb the recurrent menace. Speaking to City News, the Communications Director for NADMO, George Aisi, said that his outfit ultimately prioritizes the safety of Ghanaians, hence the need to deepen sensitization. You're still watching 2020 News on City TV. My name is Michael Obodu. Still to come, Securities and Exchange Commission to reinstate licenses of some fund management. We'll bring you the details shortly. Please stay with us.
Every day at 8 p.m., City Newsroom brings you analysis of the major news stories of the day. It's in-depth, comprehensive and researched.
Disperse the crowd using tear gas, but more weapons have been fired. And I'm sorry, speaking to you directly from the window of a police station in between two troubles.
Please, I'm just after the fetching of the water, because the government is saying that they should give us some water freely. But hereby, we are not seeing anybody who is bringing the water for us to fetch.
It's 1 hour of local news from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. The City Newsroom, every day on City TV. It's your world.
Spend 30 minutes every weekday catching up with all the trending social media conversations of the day. If you tweet it, we'll read it. We might just even Skype you. 30 minutes is all it takes, so use the hashtag 30minutes on social media to catch our attention. Join the most interactive social media TV show weekdays at 5 p.m. only on City TV.
Welcome back. This is 2020 News on City TV. Next is business. The Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Reverend Ogbami Tete, says customers of the four institutions, namely Apex Capital, Omega Capital, Ideal Capital and First Bank Financial Services, who are appealing the revocation of their licenses in court, will be paid after the legal process is done. The Commission in November 2019 revoked the licenses of 53 fund management companies for various infractions, including their inability to pay clients their investments. Reverend Ogbami Tete, however, says payment for some validated claims should commence with the allocation given by the government.
If the companies who have had their decisions, their issues decided on by the AHC, if they decide to go to court, then the customers of those companies will have to wait for the outcome of the court. We have been engaging, and that's one of the things that we've also been doing over the period, engaging with government on the level of support that they would provide. And the position is we need to have a view of the exposure, the actual validated exposure. Then we can make a determination as to what will be done, whether it will be X%, 100%, etc., etc.
Now, agric officers at Aguna in the South District of the Ashanti region have begun processes to add value to oil palm harvested by farmers in the area. The officers are worried about the losses farmers incur after harvest as they get cheaper prices for the produce in the markets. Although there is already markets for the produce, the farmers are compelled to sell at very cheap prices due to the absence of facilities to convert the oil palm into finished products. Correspondent Hafiz Tijani filed this report for City Business News.
The concerns came up after the South District Assembly distributed oil palm seedlings to farmers in the area. More than 100 farmers in various communities in the district are into the cultivation of oil palm. Although successive governments have consistently assisted these farmers to acquire free seedlings to boost production, agric officers in the district are concerned that the farmers are not getting the required profit after harvest. The officers say plans are in place to add value to the produce before taking it to the market.
We have some challenges with the oil palm plantations. Marketing is a problem. So we have even started with the marketing, though it's not ready. We have a whole lot of groups who come around to pick some of these oil palm when it is harvested. They come and they buy it at a very low price. So we are trying to see if we can add value to the oil palm when it is harvested. We can go into oil production, we can go into a whole lot of things. With the oil palm, value will be added to this product, and at the end of the day, those who will enter into this production, they will get a lot of advantages in also doing very well in this district. We are trying to bring up one variety that can, within 4 years, it will start fruiting, and then people can really enjoy.
The farmers have once again benefited from free distribution of 10,000 oil palm seedlings from the assembly. Beneficiary farmers say this comes as a relief.
Tinyamencha de muana omapanin kufo di PSI emene bae na mejibi du aboa me masitremu no esombo pa
manage say meduame na eso abamfa so ama oman no.
That's how we end Business on 2020 News. Next is sports. The coronavirus pandemic has disrupted the global sporting calendar, forcing the postponement of major sporting events, including the Tokyo Olympic Games and its corresponding qualifying events. But Ghanaian female boxer Farouza Osman is determined to still make it to a first ever game, improvising her way through training. City Sports' Daniel Cranting has more in this report.
Life as we know it has taken a serious hit this year, and sports is no exception. Prior to the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, sportsmen and athletes in general were preparing for the biggest sporting spectacle, the Olympic Games, which was set to take place in August this year. Ghanaian boxer Farouza Osman is one of those who was pushing and preparing for a ticket, and I'm here to find out what she's been up to in the last 3 months. Come with me. After falling short in the maiden Olympic qualifying in Dakar, Senegal, her attention turned to the final round of qualifying in Paris. But then, COVID-19 struck, and as a result, a suspension of all sporting activities in the country, something she believes has affected her momentum.
It's a difficult task because you training alone, you don't get anyone to motivate you to work harder. But we don't, let's say, concentrate on that much. You need to do the hard work yourself, right? You need to be your self-motivator. You have to motivate yourself to train harder because you don't know when this COVID-19 is going and when training is resuming and when the qualifiers will be. So you don't have to be idle at home without training. So we do train on ourselves. Yeah. It was very difficult because mostly if I don't train with my colleagues, I find it very difficult because maybe I have a group of girls I go for jogging with, right? When we go, we give ourselves a distance that this is where we are getting to before we return. But me alone, myself training alone without them, sometimes I do give myself that I'm training, maybe I'm jogging from my Scanda to La Paz. Mostly when I go with my friends, we jog to La Paz and jog back home. But me being alone, jogging back home sometimes becomes very difficult. So let's say when coming back, when I get to a distance that I see that I'm tired, I just vodka and come back home.
Despite the obvious difficulties, Farouza explains how the technical handlers of the Black Bombers have found ingenious ways to help boxers stay in shape.
We have a group chat that we do chat on. Let's say we sometimes normally train on our own and post it on the group. If a coach gives that this is what you are supposed to do, the coach knows that there will be no one supervising. So we decided to just put a camera around and you just do your workout. After that, you post it in the group. So that's when the coach examine what you posted on the group, when there's a mistake, you'll be like, this place you're supposed to do it this way rather, but not this way.
Farouza has pitched camp at the Fit Square boxing gym, where the owner and trainer Dennis Tego helps her enforce and perfect instructions she receives digitally from the Black Bombers technical handlers. The Olympic Games have since been moved to August next year, but that hasn't stopped Farouza from preparing towards her dream of making her first Olympic Games.
I'm very confident that if the ban is being lifted and we go to Paris, I'm going to get a slot in it because Senegal was the first experience. I've never traveled or I've never gone to represent.
That's all for sports on 2020 News. And that's it for 2020 News here on City TV. All the news in 20 minutes. Our website, citynewsroom.com, has more information on our top stories and more. Subscribe to CityTube on YouTube for more exclusive video content from City TV. Download the City Newsroom app from the Google Play Store or the App Store and keep updated on the go. You can also watch City TV on DSTV channel 363 and GoTV channel 182. My name is Michael Obodu. Thank you for watching, and as always, please stay safe.
This is what the 5-hour rain has caused to residents at Otojo, a suburb of Dansoman in the Ablekuma West municipality. The situation is not as worse as you see in this area. The Assemblyman Richard is going to join me to take me on a tour to some of the areas where the devastation is serious. Assemblyman, welcome to the City Newsroom.
Oh, thank you.
You were telling me off record that this is not even worse. There are other places that the situation is more devastating.
Yeah, it's true.
So you're going to take me there?
Yeah.
But before we go, has this been the situation any time it rains in this area?
I think since from June 3rd that we have this, the same situation like this, but that one was even serious than this. Most of the area is so serious than this. Some of the houses is almost half of some of the walls within the area, some are down. I've gone through all the area, and then as I'm standing here, I'm even at the top. So
you mean this is a high land?
That is a high land that we see here. But when you go to the down part, it's serious there.
So let's go and find out how bad the situation is. But we are going to go inside to the homes of many residents here. They are bearing the brunt of the 5-hour downpour.
When you watch it well, you can see that the man now he has moved out.
So this whole thing has forced him to move out of it.
Yes.
Okay. And that one too. I saw two ladies come up.
Yeah, they're all right, but as you watch it now, the way you see it, the house is half that they have filled it inside
to the window level.
To the window level. So they use the half of the house.
Anytime the clouds gather, they are afraid it will rain, and for that matter, they are holding on. He has taken the lead.
Since years now, we don't have dead situation.
No one has died out of this. Okay, but then many have lost their properties.
Their properties are lost.
Okay, so
this is where the woman has blocked it.
The main. Okay, so let's go to. So you blame this whole thing on.
I blame the part of it, because if he hasn't blocked the gutters, but this time some of the water will flow into the big gutter, and then it will move away. As I speak to you, when you watch it here, there's no any flood here. Why? Because the woman has blocked the area.
Whilst on the tour, we met the MC for the area, George Cyril Bray, and his team. They are also assessing the impact of the 5-hour downpour on houses, on residents here. Let me get close to him and find out what his observations are. George, you've been the MC for this area for over 3 years now. Barely 2 years. This is an annual problem, isn't it?
We can't call it an annual problem in the sense that this is not an area that is earmarked for houses to be.
But yes, people are building.
Yes, people are encroaching. They are not building, they are encroaching. That is the problem. That is the crux of the problem, because every area that government has earmarked or has schemed as a place for either factories or houses or whatever, there is a plan. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in an area where, if you check from even Lands Commission, it's a Ramsey site.
Yes.
The owner of this property feels you can't construct a gutter in front of her house, so she had virtually blocked it with sand. You know, there are several agencies we need to engage, because once it's a Ramsey site, then it means wildlife and all those guys come into the fray, right?